In the treacherous northern climes of a vast and ancient continent lies the isolated Greyhorn Valley, a land marked by the deep scars of its past. Millions of years ago, when great thundering beasts walked the landscape, and when potent wild magics still pulsed in the air, the cataclysm known as the Dark Star fell from the heavens and scrubbed nearly every living thing from the face of the world. Permanently rent asunder, this broken land eventually became known as Greyhorn Valley, and at its center, the mysterious Black Claw Mountain presides over all, said to be the final resting place of the meteorite itself. For millennia, humanoid explorers and settlers have sought out the mysteries of the mountain and have attempted to tame the strange magical energy found within it. Despite its remoteness, Greyhorn Valley became a flourishing center of civilization as one nation after another spent the eons trying to unlock the secrets of Black Claw. For some of those who explored or settled in Black Claw itself, the strange energy of the mountain led to remarkable levels of creativity. For others, it added fuel to the arcane magic they practiced. Monsters also ceaselessly sought out the mountain, though no one knows what calls to them from deep within Black Claw. There are many nations that tried their hand at unraveling the mysteries of the Black Claw Mountain, but none were as successful as the Thule Imperium, a magocracy, a country of wizards and spellcasters who managed to tap into whatever ancient force resides underneath Greyhorn Valley and used it to propel their magic to heights no one has ever seen before. With this power by their side, the Thule Imperium spread forth and soon dominated the entire continent. But then, disaster came once again to Greyhorn Valley. About 2 centuries ago, tens of thousands of unbreakable metal spires erupted from within the rock of Black Claw, spreading through the surrounding land like eldritch weeds, most often taking a form resembling enormous claws or teeth. These spires destroyed cities, collapsed caverns, buried vaults, and uncovered previously lost ruins that had gone unseen for thousands of years. Cataclysm came to Greyhorn Valley once more. Known by locals as the Grendleroot, these claw-like black spires now litter the landscape of the valley, indestructible reminders of a terrible and unexplainable disaster. These days, the Greyhorn Valley is little more than a backwater, an isolated and treacherous border region on the northernmost edge of the Grand Duchy of Charn. Ostensibly under the protection of the Grand Dukes of Charn, the valley has nonetheless languished, neglected by its Charnian masters for generations, and those unfortunate to call it home stand alone against the prowling monsters and the rampant banditry and the other more unsavory elements left behind by the last cataclysm. Greyhorn Valley needs heroes, for one day whatever slumbers in Black Claw will awaken again, and the Grendleroots will again lay waste to all. Welcome everybody to Mysteries of the Grendleroot. This is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition campaign. It is based on the Sly Flourish's Fantastic Adventures sourcebooks written by Micheal Shea. I'm your Dungeon Master, Dale, or DG, and now let's introduce ourselves and the characters that we'll be playing. Go ahead, let's start with Tristan.
Hey everybody, I'm Tristan. I've been playing D&D for way too long, as mostly a DM, but I'm very glad to be playing with DG again, as he's a fantastic DM and he's sure to bring a fantastic journey for us.
Thank
and
you.
I am playing Capiera, the dancing, fighting bard, who will who is dressed between a strange mix of high-class fashion and a bardic dress, dressed with an alabaster mask, which combines the masks of tragedy and comedy.
She sounds like she's going to bring some life to a very lifeless place.
Hopefully so.
Hopefully so. Next up, let's go with Adam. Welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is Adam. I will be playing Sir Llewellyn, and he is just basically a very, very nice boy.
A very nice boy who, because he's so nice, may actually make the world a better place. Perish the thought.
Well, that is possible, but he is extraordinarily clumsy.
Just needs some time to come into his home. And next up, Mia, or Toxie as we call you sometimes. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, it's me, Maya Galaxy. Just a Galaxy of Dragon VTuber and streamer. I've been playing with DG here for quite a while. Jeez, it's almost been about like 3 years by now. Anyway, I'm going to be playing the character Lailani. She's a changeling druid. Not a lot of memory in her, though.
She has a very traumatic backstory that, thankfully for her, she doesn't quite remember the specifics of yet. But she will. And last but not least, the newest member of our little group here who is joining us for the first time this session, Lulu, please go ahead, introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Lulu, and I'll be playing Bridget Gull, a Goliath blood hunter who was quite literally raised by wolves. So don't expect a great deal of social charms. Do expect a lot of growling and territorialism over food.
And maybe some howling at the moon at some point in her future career. Well, these are our players, Greyhorn Valley's would-be heroes. And so, our story begins. It is late July, in Year of the Realm 892. Our story begins as a group of adventurers assemble in the palace of Grand Duchess Ashalia II of Charn. She's newly ascended to the throne, and she's determined to correct the mistakes made by her forebears, and so she sponsored an expedition into Greyhorn Valley to begin to tame the chaotic frontier and protect its people from the forces of chaos. It was a couple days ago now that you each saw that proclamation in the city square calling upon those skilled with sword, bow, and spell, those with nerves of steel and delusions of grandeur, to assemble for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to conduct an expedition in the name of the crown, and maybe at the end of it, become heroes, and if not heroes, at least very rich and influential. And so what followed was 2 days of rigorous testing of the 40 or something people that were hopefuls that signed up for the expedition. You 4 are the only ones who remain after all of the demonstrations of strength and skill and agility and the mock fights between the most promising contestants. Here you are in the grand marbled entrance hall of the Duchess's palace. She is said to be awaiting her chance to congratulate the 4 hopefuls and tell them what is to come next, but, well, so far, all that's happened is you've been sitting here gathered around a little wooden table in the corner of the entrance hall, waiting. Guards pass you by, some of them exchanging glances, some of them stopping to size you up, but none of them stopping to talk. It's been a few hours, and you're starting to wonder if maybe you signed up for something that isn't quite what you expected. You're starting to wonder what you got yourselves into at all. And then you hear someone clearing their throat, and you look up. And standing before you is a small gnome-looking man, about 3 feet tall. He's clad in vibrant purple robes, and he has a beard that, even on a gnome as small as him, is impressive, running down the length of his body, trailing on the floor. He's peering over the rim of a roll of parchment, looking at you through half-moon spectacles. "I'm sorry for making you wait such a long time," he says. "But things needed to be set in order. I hope you've been enjoying the hospitality of the Duchess's palace." He looks around at the grandeur, the empty grandeur, perhaps not quite aware that you've literally spent the last few hours just sitting around doing absolutely nothing.
Capiera would probably pick herself up from the chair and almost throw herself out, landing daintily on her feet, saying, "Well, yes, it's been interesting, but let's get this story started, shall we? We've got much to do. The Duchess is waiting us, I hope? It's been hours?"
"Yes, it's as you say," says the gnome, peering down at his parchment. "Oh dear, I do apologize most profusely. When I get involved in my work, time just tends to fly by. It was only a few minutes ago in my mind that I sat down to make sense of all of these notes and scribblings your trainers have made over the past few days." He takes an awkward-looking bow. "I will, of course, need to ensure that you are all who you say you are, of course. The Duchess will not be going out on a limb for just any adventurer or anyone who can wield a sword, you see. So I'll go down the list one by one, and you tell me if the details I have here match your circumstances." He smiles. "By the way, my name is Bartleby Snavillier, and I am the Duchess's court record keeper and illusionist, though that mostly means I'm the one stuck doing all the paperwork around here."
"Oh, well, there's nothing wrong with that. A good story has to be written down, don't you think? Record keeping, it's important work, no?"
"That it is. For if there is glory to be made from this whole endeavor, I'm sure you'll want it to be noted down. So, let's get right into it then." He clears his throat, gazes once down at the piece of parchment, and says, "Capiera. That would be you, I believe. It's got you listed here as a dancer."
She gives a deep bow, playing her arms out to the side, and looks up at the gnome. "The one and only."
"Haven't yet considered what a dancer might add to the expedition, but the notes here from your trainers say you definitely have the skills. A dancer would be the correct word for your vocation, would it not?"
Give or take. I prefer storyteller, but dancer is what most call me.
"Well, storyteller, I can sympathize with that. Well, if you don't mind, then." He fishes a quill seemingly out of nowhere, just pulls it from behind his ear and starts scribbling on the paper.
Surprised you didn't pull out the beard.
Well, perhaps that is a bit too important to him to stow random objects in. "I'll just write down here, if you don't mind me asking, what brought you to this opportunity? Some sign up for money, some sign up for glory, others sign up just out of a inherent sense of right and wrong. But a dancer and a storyteller, I must say, I'm quite curious.
Who's to say what is out there and what we could know? There's so much inspiration waiting to be told through that space, she says, in between steps that seem purposeful, but laden with energy as she steps around the gnome man gracefully. I'm just ecstatic to think what we could find there, what stories I could tell and bring back. That's all.
His face for any signs of amusement, but it looks the same as it was before. He just pensively nods, scribbles down a paraphrasing of what you've just said, and then turns to the person next to you. I'm sorry, these regional human names are Llewellyn, and I don't have a last name, just Llewellyn.
How may I be of service?
I'm sorry here. I'm afraid none of the trainers managed to record down your vocation. How would you describe yourself for our records?
My name is Llewellyn.
Just Llewellyn, then? Not Llewellyn the Wayfarer, or Llewellyn the Sword Arm, or...
I'm afraid I've not had the honor of meeting those fine gentlemen.
Then he writes it down. I will simply write you down as Llewellyn the... He studies you for a moment. Llewellyn the Polite. And what would you say has brought you to our wonderful opportunity?
Capia is keeping very close eyes on him as as Llewellyn begins to speak.
I'm not entirely sure that such a question falls within the boundaries of having meaning.
Well, I understand the proclamation promised 1,000 gold pieces to every successful applicant. Potential titles, ceremonial, but titles nonetheless upon completion of the task. Surely all of this is great incentive to you, but he studies you. No, I get the impression.
I was not aware that there was a proclamation.
I get the impression that you are here simply because you feel it should be so.
Well, there was a goodly assemblage of folk, and I did hear one say there was some trouble what needed sorting, and I felt that mayhaps I might be of assistance.
Admirable, says the gnome.
I have the answer. I have the answer to your earlier phrasing. What brought me here is I joined the line.
Joins the line indeed, and 40-odd applicants. Here you are now. You certainly have something they don't. Thank you, Llewellyn. We'll move on to the next. He peers over at Bridget next. A blood hunter, it says here on the records. Strange. The Duchess has often had dealings with your order, but it is not usual for a blood hunter, especially one of an order, to, well, no offense meant to present company, simply throw their lot in with the chaff who are hoping to scrape some glory and gold.
Bridget just stares down at the gnome, just frowning. Just stares for a little bit longer than is generally considered polite, and then just says, "Lone wolf dies how it lives. Simple as that." I have to do something.
Wolf, I see. He reads something off the paper. It says here that you were, as a child, from the Greyhorn Valley. Now, as I'm aware of it, you grew up here in the duchy, here in the city, in fact, trained by the blood hunters, but you originally hail from the valley itself. Is that correct?
The valley and the packs of wolves among it, yes.
Well, there's certainly wolves there and many other things, and perhaps you are best equipped to handle everything there. But I do have to ask, you being part of a order of blood hunters and all, as well, if the Duchess wanted to call in an organized order, she would have dealt with your order's own in-betweens. Am I to understand that you are here for your own personal reasons, and not necessarily because your blood hunter order assigned you?
You might say that I am operating what's the word? Independently.
Independently. He scribbles it down. Well, that should suffice, and of course, there is the matter of your companion. And he turns to the last of our number. I am sorry, I have no name or vocation here. It simply states that, well, you hail from the forest up near Bramandin, and, when you've been asked why you're here, you've simply listed to follow her. I presume you mean Bridget here.
Hi. I don't really know where I'm from. My name's Lailani, by the way. Do you want a treat? And she holds out a treat.
Treat. The gnome looks at it, and he's trying to appear serious and formal, but then, in spite of himself, his hand comes out, just snatches it from you, and he drops it into his mouth. And he chews and savors it. I'm quite partial to those. How did you happen to know they were my favorite? Tell you what, I'm going to list down here that if any candidate has my personal endorsement, ringing recommendation, it is the fine purveyor of treats and good foods. And might I say, your trainers made note here of the fact that you served lunch to all the applicants twice and
Yes.
had no complaints.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at cooking, apparently. I don't know why. I read a book. This one over here, and she pointed over to Bridget. It's like, this one over here gave me a book, and I kind of just read it. And now I can cook. Anyway, I don't really know anything else. Kind of just like searching for my memory kind of thing. Anyway.
No, nothing like an adventure, a journey into the great unknown to uncover mysteries from your past, I say.
I'm actually looking for books.
Books are also a great source of information about one's past and the world. Now, a good cook is a great asset to any expedition, but given the apparent danger of this one, I will have to push the question. Am I to understand you are a druid?
She'll hold out her hand, and a little flame will come out of it. She's going to cast Produce Flame, essentially.
Elementary
Yes,
produce flame.
Apparently, I'm what you define as a druid? Again, I woke up in a forest, and I don't know a lot. But yeah, apparently I'm like what you define as a druid, and she'll do like quotation marks in the air. Anyway, would you like another tweet? I have two of them anyway.
He takes it without saying anything, and he gulps it down. Well, it's
Where do you
clear.
keep all of those? Where do you keep all of those? I must know.
Oh,
Never
cook
seem
them.
to run out.
Oh, just cook them. Kind of like grab a couple of ingredients, make a couple of berries, and just cook them, you know?
Right down, druid, then, says the gnome. Somebody has certainly trained you very well, and perhaps it's best you don't know who, because working with the druids, depending on...
Yeah.
Well, it can
She's
get complicated.
probably just like talking to herself. She's probably like, well, I didn't really train myself, but she didn't really get trained by anyone, did I? I just kind of learned. I suppose the order did kind of help a little.
Just as well, you're
Bridget,
a free agent now.
Anyway, she looks over at Bridget and she's just like, darling, thank you for helping me throughout this entire time.
It is what I do.
Yes, it is. And you do quite well at it, darling. Anyway,
Finish by saying that any contract entered into with the Duchess is between you and the Duchess. As a druid and as a blood hunter, your orders are not part of the contract and henceforth are not eligible for any rewards or compensation in the event of your death, your serious maiming, yada yada yada. He snaps his finger and the roll of parchment disappears, and he suddenly looks so much more perky now that you can see the full sight of his body and his billowing robes. He smiles and he says, "Now, to the exciting part. Please, the Duchess is very keen to meet you. Follow me." And he
has 2 temporary HP, by the way.
He does, and he looks a bit more brighter as you walk behind. You fall into line behind him. You notice his skin seems to be somewhat more vibrant. His robes a deeper shade of purple than before. His beard perhaps a bit longer and wilder than it was a second ago, although he doesn't seem to notice. Finally, you come to the throne room. A single enormous wooden door swings open to reveal a sizable chamber that seems to have been heated only enough to prevent frostbite for those within. The homely but functional hearth on one side of the chamber also casts an occasional shadow against the bare walls. A few elderly braziers provide barely adequate but smoky light to view the only decoration on the walls leading to the throne, an oversized map of the realm, borders drawn with precision but without flourish. The throne itself has been skillfully crafted without decoration or paint, and it will likely look exactly the same a year, 10 years, or even 100 years from now. Above the throne, a large portrait of an unlovely ancestor peers out over the room, seemingly with an expression of faint distaste. A slender, vaguely feminine figure seated on the robe, who right now is cast almost entirely shadow, beckons for you to enter the room. And once you're assembled before her, she raises her right hand. You read this as your cue to bow.
Caviar takes a deep bow, leg extended, brings her her body close to the ground, to honor the Duchess.
Does anyone else do anything with a particular flourish, or does anyone perhaps not bow at all?
If anyone has any particular perceptiveness.
I think Leilani might have just...
Hang on, Mia. Hang on, Mia. Adam, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if anybody has any particular perceptiveness, they've noticed that Llewellyn is kind of clumsy, and yet there is something smooth and very practiced and very formal and precise about his bow. Because he's wearing 75 pounds of various bits of metal, and yet he seems to do it very easily.
Yeah, and aside from, the normal clanks and groans of the armor, his moves don't seem awkward or stiff, at least when he bows. And it's obvious to anyone who is present, anyone who's been in the presence of nobility in the past, that Llewellyn is practiced at doing this, that he has bowed like this many times before in his life and will do it many more times again. Leilani, you were saying something, though?
I reckon what Leilani would do is very much something she learned from the Order. And it's something of like a little like symbolism to her as well. And it's like a basic bow, but she does hold her hand to her heart while she does it.
And Lulu, for you, the blood hunter, a serviceable bow or a nod of the head or no acknowledgement whatsoever?
Bridget will drop down. It's like one knee, one fist on the ground, just a little bit too hard. Enough that, like, you might worry that the ground would be damaged.
And indeed, several of the attendants around the chamber nervously edge backwards as Leilani sinks to the ground. And there's tension in the room for just a moment as the Duchess lowers her hand and her voice rings out, austere and strangely cold. Please stand.
Capiara pirouettes to a standing position.
I thank you for your time, and I thank you for coming before me today. There will be business to discuss, but you must face one final test. I've been told that you proved yourselves worthy among many other hopefuls. But if I am in good conscience, to send you to do the work of the crown, I must be sure. Prepare yourselves! She barks the last words like an order, and then she looks to the left, to the illusionist Bartleby, who even now is beginning to fold his hands, bend his head, and whisper a chant under his breath. Defend yourselves! Says the Duchess, as there's a great flash of light. And suddenly, you find yourselves sharing the throne room with 4 stone statuesque warriors, each of them raising their rough-hewn stone weapons, preparing to charge. And we come to our first roll, our first combat.
Oh.
Of the campaign.
She wasn't fucking about when she said we gotta prove ourselves, huh?
Yeah.
Go ahead and roll for initiative, everyone. We'll be doing
fantastic.
proper initiative since there is only 4 of you.
I'm rolling with tiny die. Oh, actually not too bad. I got 13.
13?
Let's see.
I got 11.
11?
With my +4, I got a 17.
17? And
with my -1, I have a 3.
Well, you did say he was clumsy, and his armor rattles. It's very heavy.
Well, it's worse than that. You guys all see him reach double-handed for something at his back, and he kiboshes himself in the forehead with his own shield. Something vicious. And it's just sort of a... You see him bite off a curse word, and he then has to grope around until he finds his flail and unstraps that, and then he enters the fray.
And as he does, you can tell that he's been trained and he knows how to fight, but this flail and the way he's holding it to his side, it's clear that it's not his weapon of choice. Alright. That brings us to Capiero. You're up first.
Alrighty. I think I'm going to start us off with seeing the muscle-bound creature in front of her. She's going to lean over, rake her fingers in a delicate flurry through the air, and almost pulling at the weave itself with her movements, touches Sir Llewellyn's back, excuse me. And I'm going to cast Longstrider, giving him an extra 10 feet of movement.
He's looking a bit less clumsy now. Is there anything else you'd like to do, Capiero?
And that will be my turn for now. Capiero's not going to get too into the fray yet.
At the back of the chamber, Bartleby ducks behind a stone pillar. You see him wave one of his hands, and then one of the statue warriors raises its sword and charges across the room towards the blood hunter Bridget. Each of its footfalls pounding, thumping throughout the room. And it raises its sword, Bridget, and it brings it down, and that's going to be an 11 to hit.
It does not hit.
She deftly parries it and stands her ground. The other statue warriors brandish their weapons. Two of them charge halfway across the length of their room, but rather than charging at anyone in particular, they each fish a stone spear out of a holster on the back, raise it, and the first one hurls one at Llewellyn, and that will be, Llewellyn, a 9 to hit you.
Bat it away with my shield.
Your shield that takes just a fraction of a second longer to raise than if you were entirely practiced at using it, but weathers the blow nonetheless. And then the second warrior reaches for his. Thank you, Toxie. And then the second warrior reaches for his spear and hurls it past Llewellyn at Capiera. And Capiera, that will be also a 9 to try and hit you.
Capiera pushes herself back as the spear slides right in front of her chest, but does not hit her.
And then the final statue warrior charges as fast as he can across the full length of the room, squaring up beside his friend who is fighting the blood hunter Bridget. He raises his sword and swings it in front of him towards our druid, Leilani. And that will be, Leilani, an 11 to hit you.
Oh, that actually misses.
Well done. Misses so far. You peer over in the Duchess's direction to see what she's making of your display, but her face, still cast in shadow, is unreadable. And now, Bridget, you're up.
Bridget is going to look directly at the warrior statue that just attacked them, and she's going to just let out a howl as she swings her greatsword.
The statues make no movement. They're completely unfazed, but that's not the point. Let's see how it goes.
That is a 16 to hit.
That will hit. Go ahead, roll the damage.
That is 8 damage.
8 damage, very nice. Your weapon comes down and crash. The statue's left arm crumbles away, and as it hits the ground, it flickers and disappears, the illusion broken. Is there anything else you'd like to do, Bridget?
Bridget is also going to use the Blood Maledict on the first warrior statue.
Yep, the one that she damaged, or the other one?
The other one.
Yeah. Alright, Blood Maledict. Let me just look that up. I'm unfamiliar with Blood Hunters, so you'll have to bear with me.
Blood Maledict takes a
They're
HP.
an offshoot of the Butcher and Fishmonger's Guild.
Blood Maledict. Gain the ability to so you are going to cast a Blood Curse. Which one would you like to cast?
It is going to be Blood Curse of the Marked.
Blood Curse of the Marked. Alright, and what is your save that it has to beat?
Let's see, 1 second.
I think it would be Blood Maledict would be your DC, if it has a DC. Your Hemocraft DC, right. It is 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your choice of either intelligence or wisdom modifier.
The Hemocraft DC is 12.
12. Nice. Hold out your hand, and the statue in front of you seems to shiver as the stone turns a blood red color. You mark it with your blood curse. And until the end of your turn, whenever you hit the cursed creature with a weapon for which you have an active Crimson Right, you roll an additional Hemocraft die when determining the extra damage from the right. Right. Next up, we have Leilani. What would you like to do?
Oh, Leilani sees a warrior statue in front of her, and she is actually going to pull out her scimitar and give it a good little slash.
Go ahead.
That's a 5 to hit.
5 to hit. The scimitar clangs against the stone body harmlessly. Is there anything else you'd like to do?
I think that's all she can really do at that point. She's like, never always been good with swords anyway.
She's good at other things. Llewellyn, here we are. Your chance to shine.
Excuse me, I'm wrestling with Minnie at the moment, sorry.
Dogs be dogs.
Yeah. Yes, he's feeling cookie right now. 15, 1-5.
Yep, so you're gonna charge. Are you attacking the one that your friends are fighting, or are you gonna charge one of the other ones?
I'm gonna attack the one that robbed the spirit Capiera.
So you run up to the one that's squaring off with Leilani, and off you go. What was it, a 15, I believe? You rolled?
Hang on, no.
Oh, yep, go ahead. Ah.
So the one that robbed the spirit Capiera, which I assume was number 2.
Yes, sorry, I misheard you. So you charge across the throne room, your weapon raised, and see the Duchess's face twist into a smile. Surely this man can't take 2 at once. And what do you do, Llewellyn?
10 points of damage to number 2.
To number 2, your flail, clumsy in your hand at first, nonetheless finds its target and hits true. And the statue's head crumbles off, and its whole body disappears into a wisp of smoke.
If you pardon me, my friends, if one of you can take a moment to place an arrow, a magic bolt, some form of deadly strike into our little gnomish wizard, then we can be done with all of these statues in but a moment. So, good gnome, prepare yourself. Is there anything you want us to tell your family?
As you say this, Bartleby pokes his head back behind the pillar, and you hear him furiously chanting faster and faster as calling upon the statues to defend him, and then we loop back around to Capiera. You're up.
Capiera shouts out to her large friend and says, "Not an issue, I'm on it." And she'll dance across the field to this position here. Yep, thank you very much. And then...
Well, I thought you might want an opening.
Yes. She thanks him with a nod as she loops past him. Oh, actually, I'll take the last of my movement. It's risky, but I'll take the last of my movement there, just so I'm not making this attack with disadvantage.
Yep.
I believe I can. Yep. And I will pull my dagger out, and I'm going to throw my dagger if I can.
Go ahead and roll to hit. He is hiding behind a pillar, but you can still see the gnome. You can still see his cloak billowing, his hands furiously waving. You've got a couple of windows to hit him. Go ahead.
Alrighty. Oh, wow, I have a really good hit with this because my dex is so high. Ooh, that is a 24 to hit.
Yeah.
Capiara dances over Llewellyn as she ducks out behind the warrior statue, and with a cartwheel flings the dagger out towards the gnome.
You don't see exactly where the dagger lands, but you fling it in Bartleby's direction, and then you hear the gnome scream. You hear the sound of his feet scrabbling against the stone floor, and then all of the stone statues in the room just stumble for a moment, nearly losing grip of their weapons. And you know that your dagger found its mark. And yet the illusion remains. Is there anything else you'd like to do?
I'd like to go ahead and, with a shake of small bells from my tambourine, I'm going to give Bardic Inspiration to Llewellyn.
And how and how do you think that makes Llewellyn feel as he hears the tone reverberate?
He hears the tone of the small symbols interacting, and there's this surge of energy that rushes across the floor and imbues each of his muscles with what feels like the energy, the ability to dance, to do more, as it surges through him.
And seeing you dancing, the warrior statue in front of you whirls around. It's unsteady on its feet. It raises a shaking sword, and it's going to roll to hit with disadvantage.
Ah, fantastic.
And with disadvantage, that will be a 12 to hit.
It does not meet the 15.
You pirouette backwards, and the sword clang clatters down, smashing the floor in front of you. Then the other two warrior statues ready themselves and charge towards their respective targets, and they too will be rolling with disadvantage. So against Bridget, that will be a 14 with disadvantage to hit.
14 does hit.
You duck and dodge the first blow, but you weren't expecting the statue to catch you on the upswing, and the tip of the sword catches your clothing, and you feel it cut into your skin, and you wince in pain as you take 4 points of damage. The warrior statues might not be real, but the pain definitely is, and the blood that's gushing out of the wound on your side definitely feels real. And then the other warrior statue charges at Leilani, and rolling with disadvantage, that'll be a 3. Leilani...
Yeah, that misses.
You duck as the sword cuts the air in front of you, and then, Bridget, you're up.
Bridget is going to aim a swing at the warrior statue 1. The one just to the north of her?
Yep. Go ahead, roll to hit it.
That is an 11 to hit.
11 does not hit, unfortunately. The warrior statue's still unsteady on its feet, but it's fast as it whirls around and ting, parries your blow. Anything else you'd like to do?
That is about it.
And Leilani, you're up.
Leilani is actually going to stand up after dropping down a little. She's like, oh, I'm done with this. She's going to put her hand behind her hair and pull a strand out as she casts Produce Flame. And she's just gonna
ball appears in your fingertips, dancing between them.
I think she's just gonna blow it, and it's just gonna go straight at the statue.
Straight at the statue in front of her, and you're standing right in front of it, so I'll let you treat this as a melee spell attack.
14 to hit.
14 to hit. 14 is just enough to hit it. The flame singes the front of the statue, turning the grey stone black. And how much damage does it take?
3 fire damage, darling.
3 fire damage. It's already missing an arm from Bridget hammering at it before, and as the flames eat at the stone, it just drops to its knees and sinks to the ground in front of you and then disappears.
Well, that was quite easy.
Leaves you to move or anything if you'd like to.
I think what Leilani would do is she's just gonna like move up to her mama wolf and she's just gonna be like, "All right, darling, I'm here for you. What do you need me for?"
This statue, the one with the cursed blood-red stone, looks a bit nervous now as it begins to back.
She probably
away
sees the
from
mark and she's like, "Ah, good job, darling." Anyway, and she's just gonna look and be ready. She's holding.
Llewellyn, you're up.
Yeah, he's gonna cast a glance at the and there's a furrowed expression on his face, and then he's just gonna swat the more to the point, he's gonna try and swat the remaining statue out of
consideration, remember, so do be sure to add D6 to your attack roll.
Well, I don't actually have to, do I?
Well, if you don't feel you need it. If you feel your sword arm is strong enough as it is, you don't have to use it.
Well, I got an 18.
Yeah, that'll hit it. Go ahead, roll the damage.
That'll be 7.
7. A bit more comfortable with the flail now. You steady yourself and the end of the flail comes up and smash knocks a pauldron off the statue's shoulder. It reels backwards, but it's still standing. Go ahead, Adam.
Calls out to Katia. My pardon, lady. Dancer. The core of the melody you just played is from the green field before me. I wrote that piece. How do you know of it? And Bartleby, I must confess, I am getting a little bit impatient. We have identified you as a threat, and we are cutting through your little spooks. Can we now be done with this?
Lest it get ugly.
No words from Bartleby, but he's there. You can see him there, and you know the game is up. So, Capiera, what do you do?
Capiera, I think she might risk it for the biscuit and risk the hit from the warrior statue, and I'm going to rush Bartleby.
Rush him. The gnome is not expecting this. As soon as you dance around the warrior statue and it raises its sword, and it does make an attack of opportunity against you, and with a 16, I assume that will be a hit.
It will hit, yes.
You manage to get clear of it just as you feel something heavy slam into your back. You take 3 points of damage, but you barely even feel it as you're just charging across the room towards the pillar where the gnome hides. You hear him scream as you charge towards him, and then you reach the pillar, and there he is, standing beside it, his hands furiously drawing glyphs in the air, his eyes seemingly bulging out of their sockets as he feverishly chants and stares up at you, waiting to see what you'll do next.
Yeah, she takes the hit, she rolls through it, continues to run at Bartleby, and she draws her rapier to bring it up to a point below Bartleby's chin in one quick movement. A hair from his beautiful beard floating down to the ground.
I would like you to go ahead and roll an intimidation check for me, or an acrobatics check, or a performance check, if you wish to do this with
I'll take
flair.
A performance check, please.
Because I imagine you're sort of like dancing around, and then the rapier goes whoosh, and off comes his beard. And it's less of a holding someone up gesture, and more of just some fancy swordplay.
Yeah, it's.
Is it possible that Llewellyn has essentially provided assistance in this action?
Yes, I'd say so.
Fantastic, thank you.
Go ahead, roll with advantage.
Yeah, it's hard to tell which what part is the rapier and what part is her body as she moves so fluidly with it. But let's see what we get with an advantage. It would be a 19 total for the performance check.
The wizard looks up at you, his resolve firm, his mouth spitting out a succession of syllables, and then he glances over at the Duchess, and the Duchess shrugs and barks an order. Enough! And it ends. The two remaining warrior statues raise their swords, hold them up above their heads, and fade.
Capiera turns on the spot and brings her feet together and bows down towards the Duchess. How was our performance, good lady?
The Duchess shuffles in her throne and finally stands before you, casting herself in the dim late afternoon sunlight for the very first time, and you're all able to finally get a proper look at her. An uncanny cold precedes her, an overwhelming presence, rather than a strictly physical form. Wind and shadow seem to coalesce around her into a feminine figure, bafflingly tall, exuding beauty and terror in equal measure. Meeting her gaze, you feel frighteningly small. You feel like a mortal standing before an eons-old forest. Its shadow depths are impenetrable to your pitiful gaze. She seems to sneer down at you, and she says, well, I will appreciate Bartleby spending the next day busying himself about hair growth tonics. Yes, ma'am, says Bartleby, stroking what's left of his beard. And I'd have no idea where I've misplaced that book about hair growth serums. He gives you a withered glance.
You must forgive me, I get awfully passionate in the middle of a performance. The grin beneath the mask of the side of the mask that shows comedy is matched by Capiera's.
I am sure, good gnome, that you will be able to comb your effects and produce the volume.
Bit of passion is a good thing, if I say so myself, says Bartleby, even if it comes at the cost of my exquisite beard. He cringes as he sees the Duchess smirk at his plight, amused. You have proven yourselves worthy, she says. You may put your weapons away, and, brave blood hunter, you will find the blow you took to be only illusionary. All is as it was before, thanks to Bartleby's expertise. And Bridget, you no longer feel that stinging pain in your side. You peer down and see that the wound is gone. An illusionary wound for an illusionary fight, as is yours, Capiera.
Well, that's disappointing. I was hoping I would get a nice scar out of that one.
It's a shame, darling.
There would be plenty of opportunities to get real scars and put your life in very real danger, says the Duchess. Please, make yourselves comfortable and hear what I have to say. For if you agree to what I am about to propose, you will find yourselves on the path to becoming heroes of renown, but you will also find a journey ahead of you filled with terror and danger and hardship. And despite her regal persona, despite how utterly intimidating she looks and the way she holds herself, the Duchess curtsies before you all. I am Ashalia II, the Grand Duchess, she says, as you know, but now we are formally introduced. And let it be known that I do not regularly sponsor the activities of sellswords or adventurers. However, with the succession crisis having only come to a definitive resolution a year ago, and with much of the duchy still being in need of manpower to keep order, I simply do not have the resources at my disposal that I wish I did. And so I find myself reduced to hiring adventurers off the street in order to get things done around here. You understand that I wish to sponsor an expedition into the Greyhorn Valley. It is to the north of here, one of the most far-flung regions of the duchy. As far away from the duchy, as far from civilization as you can get, and still call yourself part of the duchy. Greyhorn Valley is nominally under my influence, under the influence of my bloodline, but I must confess my forebears have been rather... She bows her head. Well, they have taken a very hands-off approach at ensuring that some of the further flung regions of the duchy are as safe and as prosperous as the heartlands. And I intend to right that wrong. And I will need those of kind heart, stout nerve, and skill in sword, bow, and spell to help me. At this, she meets each of your eyes in turn, and she says, "Can I count on you to do what is right, to do what is asked of you, to uphold your duty to the crown?"
Should we only be a name added to your tale? I'm sure it will be a worthy cause.
"It will be your tale too," says Ashalia. "After all, you will be known as the ones who brought order to the Greyhorn Valley, the great civilizers, and as such you'll be rewarded accordingly. The proclamation I posted stipulated 1,000 gold pieces each at the end of your journey, and titles, and..." At this, she lingers on Llewellyn, seemingly noticing him for the first time. Llewellyn, be possible to say that she might find some aspect of your countenance familiar?
Does he feel like he's being prompted to speak?
He doesn't yet. He just notices her staring at him, her eyes taking in his face and then his armor, and your tabard barely visible under the armor, only 1/4 of its coat of arms actually openly displayed, seems to have her particularly intrigued. And she finishes, "And for some of you," and Llewellyn, these words you feel are directed to you more than the others, "land, prestige, influence that is deserved and well earned. May I count upon you all?" Go ahead.
Your Grace, you say the three things as though they are all the same, doing the right thing and providing you with good service and doing as you have asked us. You say them as if they were all the same thing. You do understand that they can be what you wish, but not the same thing. You do understand that, yes?
She hears your words. She exchanges a glance at the gnome, and then she flashes you, Llewellyn, what you think is a knowing smile. And she simply nods. And she says, "There are those in the history of this realm who have done the right thing simply because it is the right thing. As for the rest of you, be it Whether you're in this for gold, glory, or self-actualization, I must now ask you for your pledge. That you will do what is right, that you will do what is asked by the crown, nothing more, nothing less.
Nothing more, nothing less. So it was written.
Bridget, Leilani, do either of you have anything to say?
Bridget's going to bend down.
Gonna...
Go ahead.
Leilani's
Bridget,
gonna
go first.
like...
Yeah, Bridget's going to bend down a little, almost as if she's about to kneel down like before, but stop just short and say, "You had me at danger. That's what I live for," ironically enough.
For the love of adventure? Very well. And then her eyes settle finally upon Leilani.
Leilani's probably gonna be like, I'm... Look, I'm in it for her. Points over to Bridget and is like, but also I just want to learn things, so I'm down.
Well, being down is certainly better than... certainly better than someone who strolled in here, has no loyalty to anything other than coin, and, well, I'm sure if you are the people who have answered the call, then you are the people whom I shall trust for now. She sighs. So here is what I would ask of you. When I ascended the throne, when the succession crisis was over, and when I had finished returning this country to some semblance of stability, I then turned my attention outwards to outer matters, and I found, I regret to say it, I found requests for aid from the Lord of Greyhorn Valley, dating back years. Calls for aid, for supplies, for resources, logged in my forebears' archives and never responded to. The Greyhorn Valley, of course, it is remote, it is far from here, it is dangerous, and my forebears were not always interested in pledging valuable resources to something that they felt was only a backwater. But it is still part of my domain, and the subjects who live within it are still my subjects. And there is the matter, of course, of the fact that Greyhorn Valley has not sent taxes to the capital in quite some time. In fact, not even once since I've been upon the throne. And so, knowing that Greyhorn Valley is in need of aid, knowing that Greyhorn Valley at one point in time was a valuable, dare I say it, even rich land with many natural resources, bountiful magic, untapped in its rocks, in its earth, and many mysteries to solve, I will send you for, as agents of the Crown, to Greyhorn Valley. Your mission is to make contact with the local lord, ascertain why the taxes have not been paid, and, if possible, to assist the local lord in any matters precluding him from paying taxes to the Crown. Are there any questions?
No, not really.
Is going to look around and say, "May I ask where the door is? I will be taking my leave. I am not a tax collector, Your Grace."
She points at the door behind you, and then opens the floor to the others. I see Llewellyn has heard what he needs to hear, but if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to oblige.
I'm sure there's more to discover than just taxes to collect, Llewellyn. Think of the things we'll see, the people we'll meet, the people you'll help, I'm sure. You wouldn't want to leave someone waiting for help, crying for help as they have in the Duchess's long, long history of her What were they? Your ancestors, yes?
My ancestors, who unfortunately heard the people of Greyhorn Valley crying for help and did nothing. And through you, I shall ensure that grievous wrong is righted.
I'm sure a man of your standing wouldn't want to fall into the same category as her ancestors, would you?
Indeed, she says with an austere nod. Leilani, you were saying something.
Hmm? Oh, I've been coughing. Sorry, what's up?
Oh, yeah, you were saying something?
What's that? My
yeah.
memory's like that. What?
That's all right, don't worry. At this point, you hear the door creak open, and looking over your shoulder, you see Llewellyn standing at the door. He's pushed it open. He's about to leave. There's an air of that he's done with all this. And then, finally, Ashalia raises a hand, and she calls out his name. Llewellyn.
Your Grace.
I can see that you are serious about whatever convictions have led you to become a part of this expedition, and so I will be upfront with you. You say I've asked for things that are not the same, so I will, for you, rephrase it as such. The people of Greyhorn Valley are clearly in dire straits and in need of aid. As a monarch, naturally, it behooves me to get to the bottom of why the taxes are not arriving. But there is a human problem at the cause, you see. You need not care about taxes and not feel as if you're doing the busy work of a bureaucrat. Clearly, there is an opportunity to do some right in the world.
I find, Your Grace, that I can attend to the one whilst completely ignoring the other, and by doing so, I do not need to waste my time, with respect, reporting to your court.
Indeed, she says, and it is my hope that by fulfilling the one, you fulfill the other. Very well, then.
I have to step out. I have a very large dog that is pulling on the lead, and she's going to win this tug of war.
And then with that, Llewellyn departs. The three of you left. The Duchess takes her seat once more in her throne, her face suddenly businesslike. And she says, your job will be simple at first, and I'm willing to furnish you each with 50 gold pieces up front that you may outfit yourselves however necessary and establish a foothold for yourselves in Greyhorn Valley when you arrive. When you leave this chamber, you will find one of my attendants. He will lead you out into the courtyard, and there will be an ox-driven cart. Your first order of business is to take this ox-driven cart laden with supplies and weapons and perishables to aid the people of the Greyhorn Valley and journey with it to the village of Lodingen. It is there, in the village of Lodingen, where the Lord of Greyhorn Valley resides. A man by the name of Marlin Montburn. And he will tell you what needs to be done next. If there's nothing else, you have my permission to take your leave and prepare yourselves for the journey. You will leave first thing tomorrow morning. If there is any last-minute business you have in the city, any loose ends you've yet to take care of, I recommend you take those well into hand. With that, she clasps her hands together and bows her head, an obvious signal that you are to leave.
Capiera takes no hesitation. She is quite excited to get on the road.
And the Duchess watches as 4 stout brave adventurers depart her court, and as the door shuts, he exchanges a strange, knowing glance with Bartleby the wizard, and his eyes gleam with anticipation behind the rims of his half-moon spectacles. And just as Ashalia described, as soon as you leave her room, you're taken out into the courtyard. There's a large wooden wagon with a bulky-looking ox to draw it. A brief inspection of the wagon shows you that it's filled with perishable foodstuffs, metals, weapons, arrows, bows, flagons of ale, casks of alchemist's fire, and other even more expensive esoteric substances.
Oh, Lady Dancer.
So,
Friends. Please forgive my intrusion. I was hoping for an answer to my question that we had at mid-battle. That being, how is it that you knew the court melody of a piece I wrote?
I am a well-studied woman. I have an intrigue in history. The story is held within it for what they can produce in new stories or new tales. It's an intrigue that that one in particular was written by your hand.
I was only a boy when I wrote it. It was an assignment by he who taught me how to play the lute.
Ah. Studied, are you? Well, who's to say I couldn't tell you more? But you see, I'm so caught. I have to travel far away now. If only you would accompany me, I could tell you so much more. I can tell you exactly where I learned
The
these
four of
tales.
us, he's looking at all three of you. The four of us, we have spent a companionable time together these last 24 hours. You understand that most of what she expects of you, she did not speak.
Oh, I'm sure. There's always more to history that says more to things that are said unspoken.
You suspect her use of the word taxes was the big hint.
You also understand you will not be paid.
I could care less for gold. But these two I'm not unsure of. As she turns to the large British blood hunter, you have no trouble being not paid? You said you're accustomed to danger, no?
The thrill of adventure is enough for me.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
There were 2 score sellswords and people of negotiable loyalty. And all of them left.
I think.
And only the 4 of us, the least experienced of all who peered, have remained. We were not selected because we were the best. We were selected because we did not leave. We did not quit. We did not turn and walk out.
I think my fascination would kill me if I did.
I am deeply uncomfortable with the 3 of you traveling there. I am concerned for your safety. Will you allow me to accompany you, fully understanding that I have made no oath to the Duchess?
I have no problem with it. You too?
Leilani, you were saying something?
Leilani is probably like trying to speak up, but she's just so quiet that nobody hears her really. And she's just like, I don't really care for money. I don't really... Look, I'm looking for information. That's about it. All I care about. So, fucking whatever.
Similar goals.
And it is intriguing, somewhat. You think that maybe Llewellyn has a point. For the 4 people that ended up being selected were not the ones who were interested in the riches or the glory or the prestige, but other things. And then you set out into the great unknown. The cosmopolitan metropolis of Saurless quickly departs. You leave it behind. And before long, you've left the neat, ordered, safe heartlands of the duchy long behind and approach the chaotic, dangerous borderlands. You set out at dawn each day, and you follow the road's winding path. The first few days pass uneventfully, and you bed down each night, thankful for the rest. On the 4th day, you move aside to allow riders to pass. They carry weapons and speak a strange language that you've never heard before. And you wonder where they're heading. The next day, go ahead.
If I can, are we able to interact with these things you're giving us?
A lot of time to. You simply hear, on that day, you hear shouting voices, and you have to pull the wagon to the side of the road as a band of riders zoom past, barking loudly in some very harsh-sounding language you've never heard before, but there is more than enough time if you'd like to try and hail them.
I don't want to try and hail them, but I'd like to cast Comprehend Languages as they pass.
And as the riders pass, the deep guttural words turn into words that you actually understand. Knolls. You catch the word knolls, you hear the word sacking, another word countryside, another word aid. And it occurs to you that the problems in Greyhorn Valley perhaps aren't just problems in Greyhorn Valley, but that perhaps outside of the safe, comfortable heartlands of Saurless and its surrounds, the Grand Duchy of Charn is a land barely hanging on. The next day, you cross a bridge and you find a merchant with a small selection of goods. You barter for spices, and that night you enjoy seasoning with your meager rations. Your feet ache by the end of the 5th day, and you're in desperate need of a bath, but you press on and on, until finally, the 10th day of your journey. And as the sun begins to dip behind the distant hills, you finally pass by a weathered wooden sign hammered into the overgrown wilderness. Faded lettering reads, Greyhorn Valley. Your objective is finally before you. So I'll ask a question here. Who's driving the cart?
Capiera wouldn't be able to. I don't think she'd have an understanding of how to drive a cart. I would guess either Bridget or Llewellyn, right?
Llewellyn, would you be driving the cart?
Well, Llewellyn is happy to walk along, guiding the oxen by their reins.
By their reins. Because he wouldn't sit above other people. That's not what Llewellyn would do. And...
yeah, that's why he's walking. He's just walking in front of them rather than ride the wagon. He's making room for the others to be in the wagon.
And does anyone take up the mantle? Does anyone slide into that seat? Or perhaps, stranger, the 4 of you decide to walk. And the fact that nobody elects to sit in the driver's seat perhaps means something about the moral fiber of this group. Well, Llewellyn, you're effectively leading. You're guiding the ox. You have its rein in your hands as you trudge forwards. The others are behind you. And so I will ask you at the front of the line to go ahead and make a perception check for me.
Wouldn't you like to ask somebody who has perception if it's not sucky? Okay.
You can make a survival check if you like.
I would very much prefer to make a survival check.
Go ahead.
A survival check is a 21.
21. So, Llewellyn, you notice that the others are starting to get complacent. They're starting to get bored. Nothing of note has happened in several days, and yet you can't shake the feeling that evil, that the forces of chaos could jump out at you at any moment. And so, as you guide the wagon, Llewellyn, around a corner of rock, instinct makes you pull back. You glimpsed a pathway running up a steep incline between the tall boulders, overlooked by ledges on the rocky outcrops above, and it seems to you a natural place for an ambush.
Stop the wagon.
Immediately stop the wagon, and the others sense the tension immediately. The wagon stops, and you see Llewellyn standing at attention. What do the rest of you do?
Capiera slinks over to his side. What stopped you?
This is a really fine place to launch an ambush.
Oh, company. Are you sure?
I have a feeling.
Bridget and Leilani, go ahead and make perception checks for me, please. You two are the outdoorsmen of the group. If there's an ambush ahead, you're probably going to be the ones that notice.
That is a nat 20.
Oh, wow.
20, very
16.
nice. So, Bridget, the moment you saw Llewellyn stop, you probably saw those great cliffs on either side of the trail and knew immediately to expect danger. What do the others see you do?
She immediately pulls out her crossbow and just starts scanning the cliff sides. Just very low growl just under her breath.
And Leilani, you hear it a second before Bridget does. She spots the shadows, the people, the figures moving along the tops of the cliffs. But you, Leilani, you're the one that hears their voices. You hear them plotting, hear them whispering orders. A bandit ordering his men into position, ready to ambush you. What do you do?
The drunken sailor. Leilani is just sitting there. She's like, just holding.
Squeezes Bridget's arm, and Bridget, you see them, you nod to indicate you've seen them, and then you warn the others. You nod in the direction of the shadows, and the others see them as well. You have time to scramble for your weapons when suddenly there's a twang and a snap and a shout and a huge crash as great tree trunks roll down from the cliffs into the trail, blocking the wagon from progressing any further. The ox roars in fright, rearing back, and Llewellyn, do you try to keep hold of it, or do you let it go?
I am going to try and keep hold of it.
Go ahead and make me an athletics check, please, Llewellyn.
I would be delighted to make an athletics check. That would
You
be
got
a
this, big guy.
24.
Nice.
You feel the reins loosen and the wagon jerks forwards, but then you yank them back. The ox lets out a cry of fear, its eyes wide, looking furiously around, looking for a way to escape, and then you hear swords being drawn and all hell breaks loose. Roll initiative, guys.
Fantastic. I got a 9.
9. Capiera.
3.
How'd you go, Leilani? How are the new dice treating you?
3.
3. I thought you said re.
No,
But
3.
you actually said. I thought you said re.
I didn't even roll the new dice. I rolled an old one.
7. But you got you said 3 and 3. Yeah, you do. Okay, you got 3. All right, Bridget, how'd you go?
I got 14.
14 and Llewellyn.
You guys see a repeat of Llewellyn faintly concussing himself, but this time it's very fast. He comes off in 15.
15, nice. Manages to keep the ox from tearing away, ramming itself against those trees, and still ready to defend himself. And we go to combat. All right, so Llewellyn, you are not up first. Actually, you are up first. Llewellyn, you're up first. Go ahead. What would you like to do? You see 2 bandits amassing atop the cliffs, bows drawn, and then you hear more shouting behind you. You whirl around, see 2 more bandits coming up through the back side of the pass. 2 very hungry, very large mastiffs bounding along beside them.
He's gonna sigh, and he's going to. He's gonna step around and he's going to intercept the people coming. So.
Yep. Go ahead.
He's just gonna move forward. He's trying to get them as much as anything. He's gonna get. Whoa.
Hey, you do have enough movement to get right in there.
Yeah, he's gonna take the mastiff down. Hopefully, they will congregate around him.
Yeah. Well, they see a man in very bulky armor raising his flail, charging towards them, and you see one of the bandits point at you and shout, and they've definitely noticed you. But let's see how you do as you meet the mastiff head on, flail in hand. How do you go?
I really hate this because I love dogs, but that's a natural 20.
Ooh.
That is a natural 20, so max damage, then roll again.
That's a 7 plus 10 plus 11, that's 21.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that's a dead dog.
The dog barely has enough time to open its mouth and bare its teeth and growl before thunk, the flail hits it, sends the dog flying. You hear the sound of cracking bones and a yelp, and Llewellyn, you count yourself lucky that you don't actually see the dog's body come to rest behind the copse of trees, as you really don't want to see what you've done to it. Anything else you'd like to do?
Well, I muttered to these guys that if they had asked for our assistance, we could have given them aid and food and sustenance. We did not have to become enemies. They are throwing their lives away for nothing.
Not in it for aid, says the bandit in front of you, and his dog...
I am a trained healer.
We's not in it for the aid, man. He repeats, we's in it for the money, innit? So give us everything in that cart and we'll let you go free. But you don't look like the type what's gonna hand it over, so... He brandishes his sword.
I look at his rags, I look at my heavy armor, and I say, nobody taught you basic probability to die. And he's gonna, it's combat banter.
Who's next? So at this, the bandit that is the bandit that you're trying to talk down charges towards you, as does another bandit behind him. He calls out, "Oi, get a load of this one!" And his friend comes charging up, his scimitar drawn, and they're both going to try to attack Llewellyn. From the first one, Llewellyn, that's going to be a 10, which doesn't hit you. The shield slides in and clang, the scimitar is knocked off it. And then the second one will be a 15.
Which is also nowhere near.
Nowhere near. As you whirl around once again, swing your flail out and nearly knock the scimitar out of the man's hand. The sole remaining dog bares its teeth and it barks and sprints towards the wagon, meeting off with Leilani. And Leilani, it bares its teeth and tries to sink them into your flesh with a 14.
A 14 just meets it, so it beats it.
Try to duck behind the wagon, but the dog is too fast. Despite its size, it moves like a blur, and then you feel the dog's teeth sink into your flesh, and you take 6 points of damage, and I need you to make a strength save, please.
What damage is that?
That will be piercing damage, non-magical.
Werewolf in training.
Ah, yes.
That
It
halves
is
it.
halved to 3. 3 points of damage, and go ahead and make a strength save.
Strength save. That is a 17 for save.
Nice. The dog's teeth won't seem to go in. It breaks your skin, but you see the dog's eyes glimmer in frustration as it just can't seem to get a hold on you. It tries to pin you to the ground, but you kick it away and step backwards and ready your weapon to defend yourself. And then Bandit 1 up on the cliff unslings his crossbow, raises it to eye level in front of him, points it down at Bridget, and he's going to roll with advantage from a high place to hit Bridget, and Bridget, that will be a 16 to hit.
Is the advantage from being surprised?
The advantage, well, that they haven't managed to surprise you because you saw them. The advantage in this case is because he's up on the cliff. He's got the high ground.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that does hit, yeah.
You scramble for cover, but you're not quick enough, and all he's doing is firing down into the trail, and you take 5 points of piercing damage as a bolt lands in your right bicep. And then Bandit number 2, also up on the cliff, his eyes set on the wagon and all those guarding it, raises his light crossbow and fires it down at Capiera, and with advantage, Capiera, that's going to be a 19 to hit you.
And indeed hits.
Thunk! The bolt slams into your chest. It doesn't embed itself in, but it pierces the skin, nearly knocks you off your feet from the impact, and you take 4 points of piercing damage.
Woof.
And then, Bridget, you're up.
Bridget is going to step forward, and she is going to try and grapple the Mastiff.
Ooh, pin it down, sure. Go ahead, roll me an athletics check. And the Mastiff will do one of its own.
That is a 12.
And the Mastiff rolls a 10. You square off before it, you raise your arms, you open your mouth, and you growl. Arr! Arr! Please describe how you want to... Please describe what the others would see if they looked away from the chaos for a moment to see you tackling the dog.
Bridget just stares at the dog, just that same low guttural growl underneath her voice, and then just mutters, "Get your teeth out of her mutt," and just grabs right around the midsection, holding it up, basically back to her stomach.
You feel the dog struggling underneath you, gnashing its teeth, but as you hold it there, pressing your whole weight over it, you find that it starts to settle down a bit. The struggling becomes feebler. It doesn't try to bite you so much, and soon even the growls stop as it submits to your much greater bestial instinct. Now that you've got it pinned, Bridget, is there anything you'd like to do to it? You can simply hold it down until the fight's over, or you can take advantage of it being pinned to take it out of the fight, if you can stomach doing such a thing.
She's going to keep it pinned, but also try to drag the Mastiff just a little bit away.
Yeah. We'll use your movement for that. You grab it and you pull, dragging it out of the trail, dragging it into the shadow of one of the cliffs, pulling it out of the fight. Once you're moving it, it makes a vain attempt at struggle. Its teeth gnash at the back of your palms, but it can't hurt you. And then once you pull it away from the fight, it seems to go almost immediately docile. And that's it for your turn. Capiera, you're up.
Alrighty. Capiera is going to move out from in front of the cart to behind it, try and get some cover from Bandit 1 and 2. So she dives and slides under the ground underneath one of the wheels to come up behind the cart. And then I'm going to cast, let's see here, Vicious Mockery on Bandit 3 here, next to my friend Llewellyn.
Llewellyn, yeah.
He'll need to make a Wisdom saving throw, DC 14, please.
That will be a 10, which is a failure for him.
Fantastic.
How does a dancer viciously insult somebody? I'm curious.
The bandit watches as she pulls at the weave, and she pulls a form of his face out from the weave itself, and with movement, it viciously is, what's the word, malformed to show his true hideousness. Sort of like a mix between a minor illusion and the dance itself.
The bandits aren't quite sure what they're seeing, but they know they don't like it. The bandit you seem to have targeted specifically, he seems fixated on you. His sword arm slightly lowers as he just stares, goggling in your direction. Maybe he's not insulted, but he's certainly distracted. Is there anything else you'd like to do?
That's okay. That will be my turn for now. He will take those 3 points of psychic damage and have disadvantage on his next attack roll for the end of his next turn.
And then, Llewellyn, you're up.
Okay. I'm just going to, the guy who's just been distracted by Capiera mooning and twerking at him, I'm going to hit with a flail. I rolled another natural 20.
Oh my god.
Oh, nice. Max damage, roll again.
Okay, so that is that is actual maximum damage, as in that is an 8 and an 8, that's 16 plus.
An interesting
Plus
question.
6. I don't normally roll this well.
Watch Llewellyn fail to hit anything in the next session as a counterbalance. But I have an interesting question for you. How does Llewellyn kill a man?
With extreme quickness. He's not mucking around. He gave the guy a chance. He explained to them that they were throwing their lives away. He doesn't have he's not going to lose a moment's sleep.
And
if you're asking for a description, well, the flail just simply makes him a whole lot shorter. About a
Down.
head's worth shorter.
Down he goes. His friend's eyes widen a bit, his teeth gritted, but he doesn't back away. A testament to his bravery or his stupidity. Instead, he meets you in the eyes and he says, You'll pay for that, what you did, you will! And he rushes towards you, scimitar raised, and that's going to be a nat 20 from the bandit.
Oh, even with... Oh, never mind. That was...
Yeah, that guy's dead. Llewellyn took advantage of that. However, I will say that because he's standing right next to the guy you targeted, you're in plain view, even though he doesn't take any damage, I'll still say that his crit just becomes a normal hit.
Oh.
Slightly distracted by your vicious mockery.
Would you like me to spend anything for that? Bardic or anything to that effect?
No, because you just did the vicious mockery. And Llewellyn, that will be 6 points of slashing damage as the scimitar bypasses your flail and stabs through one of the gaps in your armor.
So it is reduced to 3.
Ah. May I ask how?
Heavy armor master.
Ah, yes, you have the feat, yes. So 3 points of damage, and then bandit number 2 raises his light crossbow again. He tries to get a shot off at Capiera, who's ducking behind the wagon for cover. And I'd say, Capiera, you are an elf. You're reasonably tall, but you're crouched behind. You were just dancing, so you're not crouched behind it, so it's only partial cover.
That's fair.
So that will be a 14 to hit.
Oh, that does not meet. I'm 15 AC. Thank you.
Lovely. Thunk! The bolt slams into the side of the wagon and the ox shivers in fright. Bandit number 1 decides to edge towards the outcropping, points his light crossbow down, scanning for Bridget, scanning for the sight of the other mastiff, and not finding it, he tosses the crossbow aside and carefully slides down the outcropping. He draws his scimitar and runs around the side, charging at Bridget. And Bridget, as he comes at you with his scimitar, that will be a 16 to hit.
That does hit.
You're trying to defend yourself and the dog. It's not hard, and so it's no surprise to you whatsoever when you feel the edge of the scimitar slashing at your skin, and you take 3 points of slashing damage, rolling out of the way to avoid being utterly gutted by the blade. And then, Bridget, you're up.
Bridget is going to try and keep one arm on the dog. And with the other arm, she's going to basically try and punch.
Punch at the man.
Particularly in a very sensitive area, given that she's quite low to the ground, I'm imagining.
Go ahead and roll me an attack roll with initiative. Add your strength modifier, but not your proficiency bonus.
I don't think I needed the proficiency bonus. That was nat 20.
Oh my god, how many nat 20s?
Fucking good job, sweetie!
Yeah.
Heck yeah!
Good session so far for nat 20s. Your fist collides with something fleshy and then something hard. You hear the bandit roar in pain as he takes a single point of damage. Actually, what's your strength mod?
Strength modifier is +3.
So I will add +3 to 1. He takes 4 points of damage and he falls prone, sprawling on the ground with a thump. Still conscious, still reaching for his weapon, but lying prone just the same. And that's when we go to Capiera. It's your turn.
Fantastic. So Capiera will join Llewellyn against the fight against Bandit 4. Dashing out from beneath the cart, she's going to slash upwards at the bandit with her rapier. So let's see, that's a +6. Will a 21 hit?
It definitely will. Go ahead and roll that damage.
That will be 10 points of piercing damage.
10 points of piercing damage. So there's a flash of steel, and the rapier comes up, and then the point of the rapier is sticking out of the bandit's chest, and he peers down at it, his mouth wide open, and he gasps, and then you pull the rapier out, and he falls to the ground, instantly dead.
Your story ends here. That is my turn. Oh, actually, no, I will give Bridget a point of bardic inspiration.
Not Leilani. She's about to go next.
Oh no, Leilani. Excuse me. I just thought, yeah, Leilani. She flicks her hand, and out comes that little tambourine, and she gives it a clap, and the music ripples across the ground towards Leilani to inspire her.
And Leilani,
she probably feels it, and she's like, interesting feeling. Gotta write that down later. Anyway, she will certainly be very sternly looking over at Bridget, and she is going to run over here. And
by pressing herself up against the cliff face, but she's got more than enough room to maneuver. And what does she do?
And she's going to attack with her scimitar.
Yeah, match his with his own. He's on the ground, and he raises his ready to deflect, but you're standing right on top of him.
That is a 19 to hit.
19. Go ahead, roll the damage.
That's going to be 2 damage, and she's probably going to, actually get a little louder than she normally is, and she's probably like, "Don't you touch her!"
He manages to knock your scimitar out of the way, but not before the blade runs across the back of his hand, cutting his wrists, spraying blood all over his rags, and he screams in pain as he rolls out of the way of your next blow. And then it is Llewellyn's turn again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Llewellyn
running.
Yep, go ahead.
He popped out his hand crossbow. It's not going to do anything. He's not going to hit, but he'll that's what it's here for. And I'm going to use Owlbear because I just don't trust it when 50% of my rolls are maximum. So I get to add a little bit to this. If I can get it to roll. How do you get it to roll an owlbear?
You should. I think you just fling it. You have to use it as if it were a real die. You just fling it in the tray. Well, that's how it used to work. Let me see if the new ones. You just click on the dice, and then it drops into the tray, and there's a roll button. I see. I just rolled one, and it gave me a 16. I'll let you have that if you like.
Yeah, because I can't get it to make any kind of thing. So that's, no, it did appear, but I'll take the 16 because you're offering it.
So Llewellyn turns around and he makes his way up the outcropping, up the cliff towards the bandit. He pulls out his hand crossbow. He's totally not expecting to hit. But what is he? He's rolled a 16. After modifiers, what are we looking at?
17 total.
Yeah, that's a hit. In fact, the bandit only notices at the last possible moment. He hears the clanking of the armor, whirls around just in time to see the bolt already loosed. And thunk, with 6 points of damage, it slams into the bandit's shoulder. He grits his teeth in pain, but he is still somehow standing. A couple more centimeters to the left, and you would have had him right in the heart. Anything else you'd like to do, Llewellyn?
Well, that's actually only 5 damage because his dexterity is so low. He gets a penalty on his damage, so it's a 5.
It's a 5. 5, 6. This guy's not doing too well anyway.
He just mutters to the guy, "You need to yield already, or I will kill you."
And then we go to the enemy turn. Bandit 1, who's rolled away on the ground. He's reached for his scimitar, and as he leaps to his feet, he charges at Leilani, who's right in front of him with his scimitar. And Leilani, that will be a 12 to hit.
That misses, Dal.
That misses. Still seems to be moving a bit awkwardly, as if someone punched him in the balls, and he can't quite maneuver as well as before. And his scimitar just cuts the air next to you and scrapes at the cliff face. and then Bridget, you're up.
That was our girlfriend's VTuber model.
Bridget is going to actually let go of the Mastiff now and put her full attention on that bandit.
Just quickly go ahead and roll an animal handling check for me.
That is 16.
16. You slowly, carefully lift your arms away from the Mastiff. You have your hand still on your weapon, ready to defend yourself in case it leaps up and bites, but it doesn't. Instead, it rises to its feet and it just stands there. It meets your eyes and doesn't move. And so you turn your attention to the bandit, and what do you do?
She is going to give him the same treatment, try to grapple.
Try to pin him to the ground. Go ahead and make me an athletic check.
Crap. That luck couldn't last in that one.
Nat 1. You rush towards him, your arms out, reach, ready to wrap them around his midsection and pin him to the ground, but he's ready for you. He deftly but awkwardly steps to the side and slashes at you with his scimitar, and you take 2 points of slashing damage and still have no bandit in your hands. Anything else, Bridget?
She is going to put, basically get her greatsword.
Ready it. And as she fumbles for her greatsword, the bandit sneers. He raises his scimitar, ready to strike again, and that's when you hear a growl. And the Mastiff charges forwards, bowing down its cruel owner, pinning him to the ground, gnashing its teeth at his throat. And then, Capiera, you are up.
Fantastic. I don't have too far to go from this guy here, and he said he wasn't looking very good.
No, he's currently rolling around on the dirt trying to stop a match.
It should have been him, not him.
Fantastic.
Not
so
fair.
Capiera will dash over, leap in the air.
Or in the case
her,
of
her
me and
down
Lulu, we
towards
would
his
be the
throat,
ones that would be
between him and the
pinned.
Mastiff.
First I'll go.
Pardon me, sorry.
Any?
Just bring the roll up. That'll be a 19.
Anyway.
Wow, I've been rolling really well tonight.
To hit him? That's a hit.
19 to hit him, and it will do 6 points of piercing damage.
6 points of piercing damage. He rolls out from under the Mastiff. He sees you coming, and as your rapier dips down towards his throat, he raises his own sword, ready to defend, but he's a second too slow. He kicks out at your shin to try to give one last-ditched effort to save his life, but it is too late as the tip of the rapier buries itself in his throat, and he gurgles and dies. And as his screams fill the little trailhead, the single bandit who's left, the one who's staring at a very...
What type of fish are you going to get,
very competent
you got a branch.
paladin. He raises his
At least
hands,
you got wood.
His scimitar clatters to the ground. He takes one look at you, Llewellyn, and then he turns and begins to run as fast as he can into the tree line away from you. What do you do, Llewellyn? He's turning.
Do I have a chance to shoot him one more time?
You could try to shoot him as he's fleeing, but that doesn't sound very knightly to me.
No, it doesn't sound very knightly to me either. He's just a little disgusted. It would have been better if the guy had surrendered. He could have been, been dealt with properly. He's going to go down because he's fairly sure that some of his friends have been injured, and he's getting out his surgical kit and his healing stuff as he walks down.
The lone bandit disappears into the tree line above the cliffs, and he is gone, leaving his friends to die. Llewellyn hikes back down into the trail, and you survey the aftermath. Several of you are biting back pain, patches of blood visible under your garments. And Bridget, the single mastiff who's left, he walks carefully up to you. And you took a hit during that fight, did you not, Bridget?
Yeah, in fact, I believe I am, just a bare scrap away from zero.
Yeah. And so, Bridget, suddenly you feel your knees give out, a weakness overwhelms you, and you sink to your knees into the grass. You feel like you're about to pass out, and then you hear the whimpering of a dog and feel the mastiff's tongue licking against your wounds. You hear the sound of rattling armor and the heavy footfalls of Llewellyn approaching. And Llewellyn, Bridget's there.
Can I do a quick aid? Can I do a quick first aid?
Quick first aid? Okay. Do you have proficiency in medicine by any chance?
I do. I also have a...
I only just realized I was muted.
You were muted. What were you saying?
Lani's going to cast Cure Wounds. She's going to grab Bridget's hand and give her 6 HP.
I will give back 6 to 12 hit points with the healer's kit.
You could do both. She is fairly... It's obvious looking at her that she's fairly hurt. She's, struggling to stay conscious. Her breathing is heavy. And then the Cure Wounds helps. After the Cure Wounds is cast, she manages to climb to her feet, but she still winces. Blood still drips on the grass, and the mastiff whimpers, worried. So you can go ahead and make your first aid check if you like, Llewellyn. Or you can make it on somebody else. It's up to you.
19. And I forgot to roll it in owlbear, but I'll roll the healing. It's only
1
7
point.
Hit points. 7.
7. Better than nothing. I think you're back at full, aren't you, Bridget? From that.
Yep.
Okay, is anybody else missing any?
Capiera did take a hit. Her black and red clothing is soaked slightly more crimson than usual.
Okay. For Capiera, I only got a 5.
You're not too familiar with Elven anatomy, not as familiar as you are with things more your size and build, Llewellyn. You try your best to patch one of the wounds, but somehow the blood keeps flowing through the bandage.
I'm gonna motion over to our druid, and I said, I have not managed to stem the bleeding. Can you aid?
I've tried my best. At least for now.
The Mastiff whimpers again, and it looks up at Bridget with wide eyes.
Are you injured toxic?
No, I'm good.
Your character name. I'm sorry.
She's good. Leilani's good.
What about the
He's at
Mastiff?
7.
The Mastiff, I don't think Bridget actually damaged it. I think she just tackled it, dragged it out of the fight, and yeah, its fur's a bit ruffled, but it doesn't look any worse for wear. And in fact, now that all the other bandits are gone, it looks decidedly unwilling to leave your company.
Yay, doggy friend.
And I'm going to bandage myself. And I'm going to hand Bridget a day's worth of rations and gesture towards the pup.
The dog looks up at you expectantly, Bridget. It sees the dried biscuits in your hands, and immediately it's as if the thing never tried to attack you. Its mouth is open, its tongue is out, it's waiting patiently.
Bridget's going to kneel down in front of the Mastiff and just give him a little treat and say, "You fought bravely, like warrior. I shall call you Igor."
He barks, woof, and then Igor wolfs up the food. And then as soon as he's done, as soon as his slobbery tongue licks his haunches, he gives you one last look, Bridget, a look that you can tell, having grown up with canines, is a look that says, "You are my friend, and I will remember you." And then he turns and with a bark dashes off into the tree line.
He abandoned us. We just got him. No. That's okay.
I look over. I'm gonna look over at Bridget, and I'm gonna be like, "Do you want him?"
At his heart, he is wolf. Wolves are made for the wilds.
They are,
We'll
darling.
remember.
I agree.
And so with the
for
sun...
24 hours.
Oh, you definitely... You get the feeling as you start to take your places once again around the wagon, and as Llewellyn and Bridget start moving the logs out of the way so that the wagon can proceed, that you will see Igor again. And so, as the sun begins to descend in the sky above, the wagon continues its slow, steady journey onwards. But things are different now. Go ahead.
If I could just... Yeah, there's no way Llewellyn is leaving the bodies unburied. Yes. He's going to bury them. I don't suppose there's any chance that Mastiff is still alive.
Do you want to look for it? Because if you do look for it, you will find it, but it might make you sad.
Well, no, he's hoping it's alive so that he can help it.
And Llewellyn, your heart sinks as you hike over the outcropping and you see the broken dog's body, the head literally bent at a 90-degree angle where the flail struck. It was regrettable, but it was self-defense.
Yeah, well. Did we find anything that we needed to note on any of the bandits?
Anyone who'd like to search them may do an investigate check. God, Toxie.
I had to.
I know. I was like, when I show this map, she's gonna put a giant mage hand.
For those that don't know, I do like to kind of just fuck around with the map sometimes and place things.
So I tend to talk a lot, and these people have to amuse themselves somehow. So anyone who'd like to search the corpses may go ahead and make an investigate check for me.
Well, I think we should see what they held in there before their writing was cut short. And Capiera will take a look-see. Investigation, you said?
Yep.
That's a 18.
18. So Capiera...
I will never roll this well again, ever.
While Bridget busies herself with clearing the tree trunks out of the way, and while Llewellyn hikes over the overcropping to give the men a proper burial, you go over their belongings that are left behind. Aside from their weapons, their scimitars, their light crossbows, they don't seem to have anything of value. However, one of the bandits, the one that had been punched in the groin, the one that had the very humiliating death at your hands, Capiera, holds something of interest. A scrap of... At first you think it's parchment, then you realize it's a scrap of fabric. A scrap of grey, colourless fabric, seemingly torn from something larger. But it has drawn upon it in a very crude hand some kind of marking, an image of what looks like a hood or a cowl, deep black.
And what would this be? Capiera hasn't seen anything like this in her studies of history or anything to that effect. I know she's probably very unfamiliar with the area, but this cowl doesn't hold any religious or worldly importance that she might have encountered, does it?
Do you have proficiency in history?
I do, in fact.
So with proficiency in history, I'll tell you that you do recognize the emblem. Though it's most bizarre it should be here. For this is the mark of a gang known as the Black Scarves. They terrorized some of the outlying regions of the duchy about 20 or 30 years ago, but never the Greyhorn Valley.
Black
and
Scarves.
They should not be operating now. They sort of just stopped. Their activities ended about 20 years ago, and they were never heard from again, and it's suspected that some enterprising adventurers probably found their hideout and put an end to them. So it's very strange to you that these bandits should carry this particular identifying mark.
Black Scarves? Well, what a strange thing to find. This is the mark of an old bandit group many years ago, but are they impersonators, perhaps? Fanboys? We'll just have to see what this holds.
Yet more mysteries to be solved in Greyhorn Valley. And so the journey continues. And this time it's not boring. This time it's not humdrum. This time, knowing you've entered Greyhorn Valley and knowing it's dangerous, having seen it firsthand, you march the rest of the way to Lodingen with your hands on your weapons. And then finally, several hours later, as the sky above is bright red with the setting sun, you crest a hill, finally emerge from the scraggly greatwood, and feast your eyes for the first time upon the village of Lodingen down below. Nestled between hills to the east and on the edge of a wide-flowing river on the west, the village of Loadingen, definitely to you, seems like its main purpose is to serve as respite for those who travel along the route running through the valley. An old keep overlooks this village of about 500 people on an adjacent hill. After the keep, a great hand carved of black stone is Loadingen's second most visible landmark, rising up at the center of the village with its thumb and 5 fingers splayed out. The area around the hand is a great dig. It seems obvious previous generations have tried and failed to excavate whatever lays beneath the gargantuan hand. You see an open-air stone temple, a 2-story inn built atop steaming hot springs, and an outfitter's shop, which stand among 24 or so other buildings that make up the heart of the village, while farmhouses dot the neighbouring hillside surrounded by broad fields of crops. A voice rings out in the darkness. "Hold! Who goes there?" And ahead of you, on the very edge of one of the crop fields, is a crudely constructed wooden watchtower. You get the impression it was built only very recently, and a lone guard looking very ill-prepared, his halberd shaking in his hands as he challenges you, peers down.
I yell up to him, "My name is Inigo Montoya. We are searching for the 6-fingered man." I don't say that at all.
I was going to say, he scratches his head and just says, 6-fingered man?
Well, the statue has 5 fingers and a thumb. It's a 6-fingered man.
Indeed it does. I'm glad you noticed that. I don't know if that's an error with the map or not, actually, because there's
no,
nothing...
The drawing has 5 fingers as well.
Interesting.
It does, yeah.
Good catch.
Oh, right. You mean the hand, says the man.
Oh, no, he didn't say that. I was just making it.
So he's challenging you, and the look on his face is not one of a man who seems prepared for trouble. It's the look of a man who, as the sun goes down, is just really hoping you're not someone who's going to try and kill him.
We bring word from the Duchess. Would you be interested in such?
Duchess? You got proof? As if the Duchess had sent any one of hers down here after all this time.
Did we get any sort of official seal from her?
Indeed, you have within your bag a sealed envelope that is stamped with the crown's insignia, and you were instructed by the Duchess's attendant to present it to the Lord of Loadingen.
We bring something stamped by her, she says, holding out the sealed envelope, for your leader.
The man squints at it from the top of the tower. "Hey," he says, It's 10 to 7 in the evening. I can't see that from here." And he reaches down, leaning over to rip it out of your hand. Do you let him?
She does not, but she'll cast a minor illusion up near him to produce a copy of what was there. What is held on the seal.
Clever. He whips his hand back, seemingly unaware that he's not holding anything, and he holds the illusionary envelope aloft in his hand. He even peels it open and withdraws a piece of parchment within. Your heart sinks because there's no way you could know what was written on that letter, but it doesn't seem to matter. His eyes glaze over. He folds it back up, slides it into the envelope, and says, "Well, I can't read anything on here, but I recognise the standard I does. So you's really with the Duchess, then?"
By her very grace.
He immediately jumps up, eager to help. He scrambles down the ladder from the top of the tower and rushes towards you, thrusting the illusionary envelope at your chest. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Palor be damned, the Duchess is finally sending help. But he looks over each of you. Forgive me. You don't look like you're agents of the Crown. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you lot are adventurers. Probably come to try your luck at the ruins or at the Cyclopean Palm like so many others.
Cyclopean Palm, she points her finger over towards the giant hand in the middle of the town. I would assume.
And everyone can see it from here. It's so tall, it towers over everything else. And even in the setting sun, the black silhouette of the five-fingered hand still clearly visible. He says, "Aye, village sort of built up around the Cyclopean Palm. Must be a leftover from one of the civilizations what used to live here. You know about the Empire of Fuel, of course, but there was dwarves and elves and many things before them. People tried to dig it up. They say that the hand must be attached to a statue, and if you look at the size of that hand, how big the statue must be, but nobody's ever found it. You dig deep down enough, the earth just gets so hard, the rock gets so dense, and it was given up on years ago, but it's a good landmark, innit? And definitely a conversation starter. So you really are with the Duchess then, and you're not just here to poke around, stick your noses in where many stuck their noses in before and found naught but despair and madness.
I'll look to Bridget and Lilani, and say, well, I don't know about those two, but madness could be interesting.
I suppose
Lilani probably just nods.
I suppose you'll be wanting to see Lord Montburn then, will you? Emissaries of the Crown and all, and I'm just a simple militia man. It's my job to take you to the one who knows what's going on, and that's that. But I'm glad to make your acquaintance, he says, thrusting out a hand that's hard to see because he's wearing a gauntlet that's a size too large for him. I'm Chadston, by the way.
Chadston, a pleasure. Capiera, she says, and a long-fingered hand takes his.
Hard to even find his fingers. You eventually find his fingers about halfway down the knuckles of the gauntlet, and you give him a shake and then let him go. And you realize he's much, much smaller under all that armor than he would appear to be when he's standing guard. He offers his hand to Llewellyn next.
Is he diseased?
He's not diseased, but he looks very small and quite malnourished.
Llewellyn's gonna hand him a sandwich.
Takes the sandwich and immediately discards all pretense of being a sentry on watch duty. He unwraps it, begins to wolf it down, and with a mouth full of egg and ham, he just says, thanks. He wolfs it the rest of the way down, and then takes a look at Leilani and Bridget, shakingly proffers a hand to each of them. No? Alright then. He brushes some remaining breadcrumbs off his rusty chest plate, and he says, alright, you folk follow me to the keep, and we'll have you speaking to the Lord in no time. and he begins to lead you through the small village, past the outlying farms, into the town proper. And it's getting late. Darkness is falling, the shadows are growing longer. There's very few people about. A couple of farmhands making their way back home after a long day's work. A couple of people stop and stare, but most just give you sidelong glances and continue on their way, unsure of what to make of you. Forgive the townspeople for being a little bit less than welcoming, says Chadston. Been a lot going on. A lot going on.
Anything to do with nose, by chance?
Oh, nose? We got bandits. We got wildlife going crazy and attacking the outlying farms. You there, he looks at Leilani and Bridget. You two got the look of outdoorsmen about you. You wouldn't know anything about wolves brazenly attacking farms in the broad daylight. Definitely not usual behaviour.
You are certain these are wolves, not wolves?
I ain't seen them myself, he says, slamming a hand on his chest plate. Cross my heart, I hope I never have to, but there was a farm attacked up to the north. Big wolves, bigger than anyone had ever seen, and they took 2 cows and left one of the Lord's scouts malingering in a sickbed. Then we got bandits. Can't have any trade with any of the other villagers, let alone trade with anything outside the valley, because between them and the gnolls, no caravans are making it across the valley. So as you can see, everyone's on edge. He chuckles nervously.
Those bandits did try to intercept ours, though they were quickly put down thanks to this lot. They were very adept, you know.
Oh, now? Chadston raises an eyebrow. Come to think of it, he sees the scuff marks on your armor, the blades of grass and blood, and traces of blood on your weapons. You look like you's just come out of a scuffle. Bandits! This close to town? Well, I'll definitely... You best mention that to the Lord. You'll definitely want to know. And you got out alive. Ain't nobody's faced them and lived to tell the tale, at least not yet. And nobody knows where they're holed up, but it must be somewhere around here, you see?
Well, still, I chatted too much. I'm sure that we can speak more with the Lord and go from there.
You through a nearly empty town square. There's a single market stall left, and the person manning it is already packing up their wares. He meets Chadston's eyes as he passes, but doesn't look at any of the party. Chadston, seemingly oblivious to this, happily points out all the fixtures of the town as you walk past. I see that there, that's the Summer Spring Inn. And Amanda, she's the owner, she'll have you sorted. Travellers always stay at the Summer Spring for their rooms. But if you want a good drink, you'll have to head down to the Evershade Tavern, and I'd advise you to be on your guard there, because it attracts a sort of crowd that like to drink and don't like anything to get between them and their drinking, if you know what I mean. And that one over there, he points out a building that has what look like 2 very large grey tusks hanging on either side of the front door. That's Gavin's trade post. He's a dwarf, is old Gavin, so he knows weapons and armour like nobody else in town. And if any of you's the religious type, at this his eyes linger on both Leilani and Llewellyn, the Temple of Pelor's over that way, though worship of any other deity is allowed. And the lovely elf there will help you with whatever you need when it comes to special rites and worships. Finally, you're through the town, and the keep approaches, and as you ascend the hill leading to the keep, Chadley stops and he looks over his shoulder down at the little hamlet of Loadingen, and then, completely unprompted, he whirls around, his face eager like a child, and he says, So what do you think? It's a quiet little hamlet, but it feels like home, doesn't it?
It feels historied. There's much to learn. You want to learn, didn't you, Lalani? I'm sure we can find much there.
I mean, I wouldn't mind picking up ingredients. I do need some new cooking utensils.
Utensils? Oh, you fancy yourself a bit of a foodie, do ya? Says Chadston. Well, maybe you might want to talk to the folk over at Evershady Tavern, because look, I won't hear anything bad against the people of Loadingen, but if there's one truism, it's that none of them know how to bloody cook. Turnip stew every bloody night and nothing else. So if you know how to spice it up, maybe you might win the affection of the clientele. The old saying, a way to a man is through his stomach. Or was it the other way around? The way to the stomach is through the man. He shrugs. Never mind.
I found the best way through the man is through the third and the fourth ribs, but that's fine.
A switchbone cobblestone road leads up to the courtyard of the Lord's Keep, which stands majestically atop a rocky hill above the village. A large, still pool of water sits in the centre of the keep's main courtyard, with a granite statue of a sparrow sitting atop a rock in the pool's centre. Dozens of birds sit on perches around the pool's edge, drinking from the pool and splashing about. The keep beyond stands 3 stories tall, with square turrets in the front and a pitched roof in the back. And yet, despite all the fortifications, as you step through the archway and Chadston leads you into the keep's courtyard, you can't help but notice that it is very sparsely manned. There seems to be a single soldier patrolling the battlements along the wall, and a couple more in the courtyard, seated around a table playing cards. But it seems, for the most part, that the village of Loningen is relatively undefended, and that those who are willing to defend it have their hands very full. Well then, says Chadston, here we are, the Lord's Keep. Well, I don't really want to head inside and interrupt him. People being he's a lord and all, and me being a lonely militiaman. I think, given you've got that letter from the Duchess, you're much better suited to the task of knocking on the door than disturbing him from his dinner, eh?
Might as well. There's no better time than the present.
So Chadley departs, bowing to each of you in turn before he scurries away out of the keep courtyard back to his post in the outlying farms. And as you approach the front door of the keep, a couple of soldiers that are sitting around watch you silently.
Think we'll knock?
Upon the door is a large golden knocker in the shape of a sparrow, its wings serving as the handles, a sparrow in flight. You can tell it's made of gold, but only just. Like everything else you see that's attached to this keep, it is old, and dusty, and clearly not in its prime. Who's going to be the one to do it?
I'll let someone else do it. I've been doing too much.
Bridget will push open the door.
Yeah, she doesn't even bother with the knocker. She just steps forwards, pushes the doors open, and they creak open, letting you into the keep itself, the majority of which seems to be a vast open dining hall. There are some doors off to the sides, but most of the floor space is devoted to this gigantic feasting hall. And you can imagine that in better times, the Lord probably held many celebrations here with the townsfolk, but now there's only one person seated in a high-backed throne at one of the tables, and it looks rather comic. A single person seated at the end of this very long feasting table, picking at a single plate of meat and vegetables. He looks up at you as he hears the door open, and the flickering candlelight illuminates him well enough to get a good look at his countenance. If the Duchess was cold and austere and intimidating, Lord Marlon Montburn is the picture of a man who is down to earth, likes to frolic with his subjects, and isn't above putting in his own hard work and getting his hands dirty. He's square-jawed, has long flowing blonde hair, and looks incredibly kingly. And he greets you with a jolly laugh as he takes a swig of the flagon in front of him, and he says, "Well, hello there! Travellers, I see. And to who do I owe the pleasure? Draw up a chair and, there, Higgins," he motions to an attendant, "bring out some goblets of wine for the guests."
Well, you're
How many
much...
fingers?
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to ask how many fingers on his hands.
Definitely a good question to ask. Make me a perception check, please, Llewellyn.
Oh, well, that's not going to work out terribly well. But I will make the roll, unless you want to roll it, because that'll take mine a bit of time.
I seem to have good luck, better luck. Well, actually, no, I won't say that given how many nat 20s have happened today, but that's going to be with a 4, unfortunately. You notice, Llewellyn, that even though the Lord has settled down to dinner and he's dressed in his evening's finest, both of his hands are still wearing thick metal gauntlets. In fact, as he lowers his flagon down on the table, the gauntlet rattles on the wood.
Why are you wearing your gauntlets?
"And why should I not?" he says with another jolly laugh, not quite answering your question.
Because wearing them would clumsy and basically flies in the face of good table etiquette. Being the local lord, I'm sure you were brought up being taught basic etiquette. I am curious that you are flouting it now.
And if I told you that circumstances in this town are currently such that things like dinner table etiquette and how to hold oneself and how to dress correctly are no longer of importance, and in fact what is important is being ready for trouble at any moment, what would you say then?
I would say that is a splendid attempt at misdirection, because it takes but a moment to put gauntlets on, and the accoutrements of war, gauntlets are the least.
But it takes less than...
You were starting to say something.
It would take less than a moment for a bolt to be loosed from a crossbow or a bow? No?
"Indeed," says the Lord. "An instant is all the difference between life and death, and it is an instant saved by being ready for the occasion. He pushes his plate away across the table. He gestures towards the empty seats, and he says, "Please, draw up some seats and introduce yourselves. I received a magical missive from the capital. Some gnome by the name of Bartleby. He said that the Duchess was sending people here. I scarcely believed it, and yet here you are. So please, to whom do I have the pleasure of playing host to on this otherwise fine evening?" At this, one of the little side doors opens and an attendant shuffles in with a silver tray, and he's unsure, given that you're still standing, whether to hand the glasses of wine to you or put them on the table. And so he compromises by just lowering the tray down onto a little pedestal next to you and then shuffles out of the room.
Cap will pick up one of the glasses and she'll dance across the room to settle near the man, and she'll throw the letter in front of him.
Yes, don't be afraid. Drink up. Take your seats. What does everyone else do?
I probably just follow Bridget.
Bridget is going to look for a chair that is like fairly close to the entrance door and sit down in that chair.
I like that. And then Leilani slides into the one next to you. You have the whole table now between you and the rest of the party and the Lord, but you're very close to the door, and it makes you feel, the two of you feel, some measure of comfort.
Llewellyn starts just doing a circuit of the room, poking his nose into whatever it is that he can see that has put him on edge.
And Cap will be doing her best to keep the Lord's attention with the letter and all that while he's moving around the room to see what he can find out.
Do the twerking thing, that'll distract him.
In that case, I will ask Capiera to make me a performance check, and I will ask Bridget and Leilani to both make straight charisma checks for me.
Performance. Oh, that's a nat 20. Oh my god.
18.
I like
18.
Just fine.
17.
17. So Bridget and Leilani are doing their very best to look non-threatening, but also make sure they're very close to the exit, while Capiera grabs a glass of wine with a flourish and drinks it and settles herself down and begins to gush about the palate of the wine and the decor on display, which is a very obvious lie to everyone else assembled because the inside of the keep is threadbare. Aside from the tables, there's naught but grey stone, but it seems to work, and the Lord leans in, laughing jollily as he takes the letter, uses a little silver knife to cut it open and unfurls it. And while he's reading it, Llewellyn, what is your attention drawn to in particular, do you think?
I don't know. Somebody trying to do things like open letters and eat a meal whilst wearing armored chain gauntlets makes very little sense. He is looking at the other people. He's trying to see if other people are wearing gauntlets. He's trying to see things that are out of sort.
Go ahead and make me an insight check, please.
Because he's been afforded more time with by Cap's flurry of actions and dancing the wine glass over her fingers and that to catch the Lord's eye. Would he have advantage in that?
That is what is given him him the chance
gotcha.
to have, you know, he's had the attention pulled away from him so that no one's going to notice that he hasn't yet sat down, that he hasn't yet taken his hand off the hilt of his weapon.
Got you. Goes from being from him not having the chance to, yeah, understood.
He gets an 8.
An 8.
There
is something uncanny. Oh, if you want.
Oh, if I can.
How will you do it? And how will you do it, though, without alerting the Lord to the fact that you're...
Cap's keeping an eye on the Lord directly, but she'll while she's lifting the glass to her lips, she lifts the masks and tries to mouth something towards Sir Llewellyn, because I'm keeping the mask up in front of me so that the Lord can't see her lips, but he can.
Make a deception check for me, please.
Ooh, deception. I'm decent at those. I got +4 on those. Another nat 20. Not even kidding.
Llewellyn, you see Capiera mouth something, and it takes you a second to realize she's mouthing the lyrics to the same song that she played back in the capital. And that will let you roll a d6 and add that to your roll.
Okay. Well, that's an extra 2.
Extra 2, bringing
that takes it to 10.
10. So I'll say with 10, there is certainly something odd going on, but it isn't necessarily something that seems dangerous. All of the attendants, the people attending to the food, the other people you'd expect to find waiting on the Lord appear to be normal, and they're even deferent to your companions, offering refills of Capiera's wine, trying to tempt both Bridget and Leilani with trays of pastries, and probably getting rebuffed when Leilani fishes more treats out of her bag and hands them around. Am I right?
But Leilani wouldn't have many treats on her right now.
Does she take one of the pastries she's offered?
I'll take a pastry.
Take it, you bite down on it, and you find it decent. But you can think of a few things you'd like to do better had you had the chance to make it yourself. Is everything to your liking, ma'am? Says the man who handed it to you.
It needs a bit of work, darling.
He looks crestfallen. He turns and silently walks away. Very good, ma'am, he mutters when he's finally out of earshot. And Llewellyn, perhaps the only odd thing in this room is the Lord himself. And it's staring at him and trying to make sense of him that you notice, Llewellyn. Ah, yes, you're using your divine sense.
I am indeed.
So you are instantly confident that he does not mean to do you harm. You don't get the sense of evil from him, and even though you're only beginning your career, that's one of the things that you're familiar with, evil and the scent of evil. You do not recognize it on him. And as you try to make sense of him, you realize that the gauntlets he's wearing are not even strapped to his hands. It's as if he's just hurriedly put them on when he's heard voices out in the courtyard. The straps of the gauntlets dangle underneath. It's hard to see them because he doesn't move a lot. He carefully picks at his food, but you catch one of the straps dangling on the table. He fumbles with the letter opener and finally manages to get it open and then reads the parchment within. And when he's done, he clears his throat. Well, it says here that you are agents of the crown, and you are here to, let's get this correct. He glances back down at the paper. Inquire as to the whereabouts of 3 years of back taxes owed to the crown by myself and the people of this valley. And that I am to, what does it say here? Accommodate you as best I can, that you may fulfill your duty and ensure that payment may be rendered in a timely manner. He sighs.
Well, of course, these three are the agents. I am merely tagging along because they are friends of mine, and I do not feel comfortable with my friends traveling in a banded, rich environment such as your demands. I am also a skilled healer, and if you would like me to take a look at whatever it is that you are trying to hide from us about the state of your hands, I assure you I'm more than happy to have a look.
Make me a persuade check, please.
Okay. I'm going to make persuasion at +6.
You should be good at this.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at this one. That would be a dirty 20.
He looks up at you. He looks up at you, Llewellyn, meets you in the eyes, and then he smiles as he tears the letter in twain. He tosses the scraps over his shoulder where they land in the fire pit and begin to crumble in the embers. You get it, he says, pointing at you. And so, I shall reveal to you what is truly happening here in this village. He slides one of the gauntlets away from his hand, and underneath, you see his hand, normal amount of fingers, wrapped very tightly in bandages, so tightly that he can barely move the individual digits. He slides the other gauntlet off, and the second hand is not there at all. Instead, a bandaged stump hangs forlornly underneath. Forgive me. I didn't want agents of the crown to see me in such a state. Forgive me, the Grand Duchy has done little for the people of this village, or the people of this valley in general, and I did not feel it was prudent to show any sign of weakness, but he looks at you. Llewellyn. Your name is Llewellyn. It's what it says here on this letter, is that correct?
It shouldn't have made reference to me at all. I am not in the employ, and I have not given oath to the Duchess. But yes, I am Llewellyn.
And yet
whilst he's talking, I am going to very gently cut away the bandages and try and find out what's going on with his hand.
He lets you. He seems to trust you. He lets you unpeel the bandages as he goes on, occasionally stopping to wince as you touch a particularly raw part of his flesh. It says you are... What did it say in the letter? A man of great promise with a great legacy to live up to, and... Well, I can see it in your face. It's clear. You don't care about whether the Duchess gets her taxes, do you? You care about putting an end to all the troubles this little town faces. And underneath the bandages, his hand, which still has all the fingers, is covered in nasty black burns. The other hand appears to have been burned clean off. There's not even bone under the skin anymore.
How did you come to be burnt so horribly?
First, I must ask what it is you intend to do here in Lodingen. And I must say what you really have come here to do, because, well, if the Duchess wants her taxes, she will get her taxes, but there is so much that needs to be done before that can come to pass.
Now I'm going to treat your hand, and then I'm going to do exactly as I said. I am going to look after my friends. Medicine and lay on hand. Do I need to burn 5 points to remove condition?
We have 5 points currently as a first level paladin, so I'd say it depends. If you want to restore his hand to full function, you'll need to burn all of your 5 hit points. If you simply mean to make things more comfortable for him, a single point will do it.
I am going to glance at the others because, they wouldn't metagame or anything like that and take this as an opportunity to signal to me, no, wait. Okay.
Capiera her head is turned inquisitively to the side, revealing both faces of tragedy and comedy, watching curiously to see what will happen.
Yeah, he just starts massaging his fingers, and where his hands go, the wounds flake away as if they were made by makeup. And where he's touching, he's just gently massaging the injury out of his hands until there's this vile, nasty crud laying on the table.
And suddenly the Lord's hand is new and fresh. He raises it, flexes his fingers together, clenches a fist, and then reaches forward, grabs his fork, and finally manages to take a bite of his meal. He savors it, leaning back in satisfaction. And then he says, sincerely, I thank you.
I am sorry I cannot restore your other hand.
Well, we'll call the other one a price paid to beseech the gods for aid for this village. And now aid has arrived, and Palor has answered my prayers, and you are here before me. He finally notices Bridget and Leilani seated at the opposite end of the table, and then he calls out, "You two, no need to be afraid, nothing will bite." Anything I can get you, pastries, wine, cooked meat.
Bridget will just call out from across the table and say, I would rather hear about this wolf problem that I've heard about in this area.
Ah, yes, the wolves, says the Lord. One of many issues we've had to deal with of late. Forgive me, it's all just so much at the moment. His good hand runs through his flowing blonde hair. Well, I am Lord Harkin Montburn, as you have been told. I am the lord of this village, ostensibly the lord of this valley, and yet the other villagers in this valley do not lend aid, and everybody here struggles under the yoke of the forces of chaos. There must be something happening. Are you all aware of the history of this valley? He tosses the question to the room.
Capiera would be aware, I'm sure, of at least the basic details.
You'd all be aware of the basic details, but Capiera, you'd know more. You'd know specifically that there was a empire that once used this valley as a seat of their power. You would know of the history of that something woke up in the mountain and laid them to waste. The rest of you would have simply heard of the Grendleroots.
The things awoke, lay waste. No?
And this valley has not been the same since, he says. Never mind, there are big black spires that we have to build around. Never mind that the entire valley rearranged itself overnight. Never mind that every night you can hear it, something thrumming under the earth, something living but not yet awake. Now we have to deal with bandits. Bandits who have been completely completely absent from the affairs of this realm in decades, back at their very worst, ambushing everyone they can find, making sure none of the villagers in this valley can have any sort of trade, that no caravans can leave, and that is the main reason why the crown is not getting their taxes. But there is so much more. The animals in the wilderness seem more vicious, more bloodthirsty. They're larger, they're more ferocious, and yes, at this he looks Bridget in the eyes. Large wolves, dire wolves, I suspect, though some of them normal size, laying waste to the outlying towns. You will have noticed that we've recently constructed several watchtowers around the crop fields, and yet it has done nothing to deter their attacks. And just the other day, one of my own scouts had his farm attacked while he was out trying to discern the location of the bandits. Came back with not a hint of the bandits, and to find his farm laid to waste by rabid wolves. And he was injured to boot.
He was bitten by a rabid wolf.
Attacked by wolves, but that's the thing.
You said rabid.
Oh, but when I say rabid, he doesn't mean actually infected. He means rabid as in they're acting like they're rabid, as in they're not acting like normal wolves, but for the most part, they don't appear to be diseased, surely, he says, and yet, well, we've had the priestess monitoring him, and there's no signs of any disease, and yet there's no other explanation for the wolves acting this way. They must be rabid, unless, Lady Bloodhunter, you would, in your experience, could think of something that would rile up the wildlife in such a manner that they would ignore sentries posted, that they would attack in broad daylight, that they would maul people of the village without being prompted.
Bridget is going to basically just look down at the table and say, I do not know what it is that could be making them so feral, but I worry that I may have suspicions that are yet to be founded. I have seen wolves become problematic in the past, and I have seen the kind of damage that they can do when they become a little more man than beast.
And bear in mind, it's not just wolves too, says the Lord. Wolves, mountain cats, even the beasts of burden and the game are flightier than usual. We had a huntsman gored by a deer in the middle of a hunt. The grand buck just charged him, and it wouldn't have even known he was there any other time. But it's the bandits. It's the bandits that are the pressing issue. Between the bandits and whatever has the wildlife acting the way it is, this town cannot receive aid, and furthermore, I cannot bring the rest of the valley under control. And until that is done, well then, I hope none of you mind saying, but Duchess Ashalia can suck eggs.
Hopefully, apt way to put it. But speaking of said bandits, we were told to advise you that they're getting awfully close to town now.
Very close to town. The other day, a group of people traveling to Deep Delver's enclave, just bringing victuals, food from one town to another, were attacked. There was nothing even valuable in their caravan, and yet they were set upon. The bandits do not challenge you. They do not give you a chance to hand over your belongings. They don't bark your money or your life. They simply attack.
It is reminiscent of a bygone era of bandits, I presume.
Indeed. And there's a rumor that they're the Black Scarves, and if that's true, then they were a very ferocious gang indeed. But I've seen no proof to consolidate it. We've never captured one, never questioned one.
There'll be a flurry as a piece of paper flies into the air, and it's held in place as a tip of a rapier holds it up to show the symbol of the Black Hoods.
Lord Montburn immediately recognizes. You see his eyes grow wide and fearful. He swallows. You've encountered them.
Yes.
Where, might I ask?
Oh, I'm not good with directions. Where were we? Where were we? Bridget?
It was within a day's walk from here, only about 3-4 hours ago. Within a day's walk from here, says the Lord, letting the words hang on the air. They're getting closer and closer. We still have no idea where they could be, and the scout I sent to look for them, like I said, he was attacked by wolves, and he's not in a fit state to talk to anyone, but he looks over at you, Llewellyn. If you fixed up my hand, you might be able to do him some good, and maybe he might know something. I have some ideas where they could be, but no obvious proof, and he sighs. There's just so much to handle, so many leads to track down, so many questions that need answering. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, Llewellyn's going to turn towards Liliana and Bridget in particular. I have recollections of a story, a fable from long ago where animals, the birds, the rabbits, deer, the wolves, everything turned on the community, and what had occurred was that the community itself, whether it was aware of it, was containing forces inimical to nature itself, and therefore nature turned on it. Is what our Lord here is describing in keeping with such a thing, from your understanding of the way nature operates?
I think you would see Lailani sort of standing, like, she's kind of got one hand on another arm, and she is digging a little into the arm a bit. And she's like, from the knowledge I know, thanks to the Order, I might have been in a situation like that.
You've encountered something like this before, says the Lord. He leans in eagerly. Please do tell. It could be of utmost importance.
I look at Bridget and I'm like, are you okay with me talking about it?
It seems relevant to the situation. It would be best for them to know.
Okay. And she might, like, let go a little bit of her arm. She's still sort of digging her nails little into the arm. And she's like, okay, I do not know a whole lot about my history, my parents, anything of that matter. The Order had found me in a village. And I was not me. It took a long while for me to become.
When you say you were not you, do you mean...
I am what they would define as a little more of a wilder kind of like
lycanthropy, says the Lord, and there's disgust. There's disgust tinged in his voice as he says it. Lycanthropy! But I must not be prejudiced. I do understand that there is a particular order of blood hunters that use lycanthropy.
Yes, they do. Bridget and I are a part of that order. Bridget here is actually the one who found me, and I am very close to her because of that. I don't speak a whole lot, and I'm usually really quiet, but that is because when I learned what actually happened, it broke me.
Forgive me for prying, says the Lord, but has it happened yet? The change? Have you transformed?
The change is something I'm not particularly comfortable talking about in a way. The most I can tell you is that when the Order found me, I didn't look all like this. And I, apparently being touched by the lycanthropy, tends to have sometimes an effect of loss of the memory. Which is great, I barely know shit about the world, but let's just say, with what this is, I have learned to control myself. And she will sort of look at Bridget and be like, may I let go?
You will vouch for this person, Lady Bloodhunter, that she poses no threat to the people of this village?
If there was a threat, I would be the one to suffer the claws. No other.
May I let go, darling?
Then you need show me nothing, Leilani, for I don't know what it is, and I don't know why, but... He looks over at Llewellyn. I trust you. There are not many who would make themselves present, would appear before me, and would go out of their way to heal an old man's gruesome wound. He sighs. Oh, there is much to be done, many questions to be asked, many plans to be made. But maybe now that we have some people who actually can fight worth a damn, we might be able to start solving things. Do you have a place to stay? Says the Lord. If not, I'd be willing to allow you to stay here in the keep. At least for tonight. I understand if I play host any longer than that, Mr. Pickhorn down at the Evershady Tavern and Miss Jess over at the inn would be most displeased that I've deprived them of a chance to make new customers. You've all come a long way. He claps his hands together. Enough talk. of dire things. Now, Higgins, prepare 4 beds and dinner. He looks over at you, Leilani. You don't have any particular preferences, do you?
Do you have raw meat?
Raw? Higgins,
Juiciest steak.
Yes, sir, says the man whose pastries you insulted, and he still looks at you warily. Yes, my lord. Cook the meat medium rare, please.
No, I don't want it cooked. I need that raw.
Cook half of it medium rare, and leave the rest as is. He winks. Yes, my lord, says Higgins, as he turns and shuffles out of the room. Now, eat, make yourselves merry, and when you're ready, Higgins will take you up to your rooms. Get a good night's sleep, and then tomorrow we shall discuss the business at hand. Wildlife running rampant, bandits ambushing anyone on the roads. I don't know if they're linked, but we're going, by the gods, to figure out what's going on and put a stop to it. Because the people of this village, the people of this valley, have had enough. And with that, he rises from his seat and, pulling his cloak around himself, regally strides across the grand hall. He halts in one of the doorways, looks over his shoulder, and says, please don't disappoint me. And then he steps out of the room. And that's where we'll end the adventure for tonight.
Quite an interesting start.